Anti-Oedipus, Silvestre. Wishes up to tell if any pings. I can't go like yellow. In the agent, you bite the whistle. Works well.
Here I go, anti-Oedipus.
Yes, it's a William Brixit one these days. So it's still some. After.
Here I go, anti-Oedipus.
Oh.
It functions everywhere, sometimes without stopping, sometimes discontinuously. It breathes, it heats, it eats, it shits, it fucks. One mistake ever said the it everywhere. It is machines, not at all metaphorically. Machines of machines with their couplings, their connections. An organ machine is connected with a source machine. One emits a flux, which the other cuts. The breast is a machine that produces milk, and the mouth a machine coupled to that one. The mouth of the anorexic hesitates between an eating machine, an anal machine, a talking machine, a breathing machine, deeper machine, asthma, attack. This is why we are all tinkerers, each with their own little machines. An organ machine for an energy machine. There are always flux and cuts. Judge Schreber 5 has divine rays in his ass. Solar anus. And rest assured it works. Judge Schreber feels something, produced of something, and theorized about it. Something is being deduced effects of machines, not metaphors. Of the schizophrenic. It's a better model than the neurotic lying on the couch. A bit of fresh air, relationship with the outside. Take the stroll of Lenz into the outdoors. It is different from moments when Lenz finds himself with his good pastor, who forces him to situate himself socially in relation to God, in relation to Father, in relation to Mother. On the contrary, he is in the mountains under the snow with other gods, or without God at all, without family, without father or mother, with nature. What does my father want? Can he give me better? Impossible! Leave me alone. Everything is a machine. And three celestial machines, the stars are rainbows, alpine machines, each coupled with those of his body, noise machine. Uninterrupted, idle instrumental. It must feeling of endless bliss to be in contact with the profound life profound to every form. To have a soul for the rocks, metals, water, and plants, to welcome into oneself, as in a dream, every element of nature, like flowers that breathe with the waxing and waning of the moon. Och det landskap gissets where, både die vi multidagen ned, innen the replies. Krongas can be a chlorophyllin machine or a photosynthesis machine, or at least split his body as a part into such machines. Lenz put himself before the distinction of man nature, before all the identifications that this distinction.
Hello, YouTube. How are all of you doing today? I hope you're doing well. Welcome to the ongoing reading of Anti-Oedipus from the Deleuze and Guattari Quarantine Collective. We are 5 3/4 years into the Quarantine Collective, And we are finishing Anti-Oedipus for the third time, right as the new year kicks in. So this will be a fun stream. And then later tonight, we're going to be doing a New Year's stream and hang out and all that fun, dumb shit. And then next week, we are going to be, I might take a week off. But then we're going to be starting Anti-Oedipus. Because that's what we do. As we've been coming to the end of the book, the primary focus around like all of this has been really getting to, I would say, points where they're bringing together a lot of various elements that they've been chatting through, that they've been talking about, that they've been bringing up, concepts that they've introduced throughout the entire book, and finding ways to sort of bring them all together. In the previous sections, the previous paragraphs, they've been very, very focused specifically on how people move from subject groups to subjugated groups, and then back to subject groups. The primary difference being that a subject group you can think of as just a group that happens to contain people, versus a subjugated group, which is a group that subjugates you for being a part of it, a group that you, as a part of it, consider yourself a part of that group. You are subjugated to the larger structure. So, for example, I am not subjugated by the DNC. I don't consider myself a Democrat. I feel goddamn horrified I have to vote for what I have to, but I still vote. I still do my thing. There's subject groups. You're just part of these things. You happen to show up at a protest. You happen to show up somewhere. I mention I bring up George Floyd protests a lot because, well, it became a Black Lives Matter protest. They were weirdly out of nowhere. I'm sure they weren't. I'm sure people put effort into this, but it isn't purely, we're having a thing today. The No Kings rally, for example, organized by people, set up in a very specific way towards a very specific thing. The George Floyd rally, when it first started, for me, it was, hey, there's people protesting down the street, like walking. And it was kind of just people walking. Didn't really have a point, didn't really have a goal. Subject group became subjugated group, became Black Lives Matter, became focused on this or that, and became shitty in a lot of ways, to be frank. But that separation, that difference is the focus, because we end up seeing this happen with a just extraordinary number of movements and people. So as we talk about these two sort of sides, their focus primarily is to get us to talk about and understand how people move from one to the other and back again. And it's not because their class interest is in a particular place, not alone. It's not that their impulses and their unconscious are in a place or invested in a thing alone. It is that they are constituted of the combination and process of these things in the real world and in the way that the world sort of falls back on it, that sort of comes together in every moment to sort of define where a person is, how they're in it, all of that. And so the way that the world operates, the sentence that is right before where we're starting today, is focused on the oscillation between the two poles, the schiz, revolutionary, the paranoiac, reactionary. The oscillation between the two poles is a constituent aspect of the delirium. No one sits in that place, this place. You aren't a revolutionary. They aren't a reactionary. It's easy to use this language. It makes it simple, especially when someone's behaving like a reactionary, which these days fits a lot of people. But they're still oscillating. They still move. They still have lives that they go into. They may oscillate shitty. They may not be as obvious to us, but they still do that as they experience their actual lives. When we totalize them by their actions or the groups they belong to, we do wrong by them. Just generally speaking, we do wrong by their desiring machines. We do wrong by their unconscious, their class interests, and we do wrong by everybody, because this is how everyone kind of works. So As always, we are going to give a read. We have one, two, wait. We're further along than I thought. I think we are, yeah, we're a little bit further along. That's okay. I'll keep going. I see it's saved in another place. I must have, we went back and we were just describing everything. Yeah, they go through, after that, they then go through the sort of pre-criticisms that they're expecting from the work. We went through those last week. I don't have a lot of interest in revisiting them, their critiques. If you want to go have that, you can do that. But we left off at my favorite part, where they have no political program to propose. Then from there, we will have 1, 2, that'll be it. 2 paragraphs after this. Good Lord. Good Lord. This is going to be a thing. Let's do it. Sorry, it always strikes me that this is a thing I get to do. And I'm always pretty happy to think about that. And then, above all, we are not looking for a way out when we say that schizoanalysis, as such, has strictly no political program to propose. If it did have one, it would be grotesque and disquieting at the same time. It does not take itself for a party, or even a group, does not claim to be speaking for the masses. No political program will be elaborated within the framework of schizoanalysis. Finally, schizoanalysis is something that does not claim to be speaking for anything or anyone, not even, in fact, especially not for psychoanalysis. Nothing more than impressions, the impression that things aren't going well in psychoanalysis, and that they haven't been since the start. We are still too competent. We would like to speak in the name of an absolute incompetence. Someone asked us if we had ever seen a schizophrenic. No. We've never seen one. If someone reading this book feels that things are fine in psychoanalysis, we're not speaking for him. And for him, we take back everything we have said. Those dickheads. So what is the relationship between schizoanalysis and politics on the one hand, and between schizoanalysis and psychoanalysis on the other? Everything revolves around desiring machines and the production of desire. Schizoanalysis, as such, does not raise the problem of the nature of the socius to come out of the revolution. It does not claim to be identical with the revolution itself. Given a socius, schizoanalysis only asks what place it reserves for desiring production, what generative role desire enjoys therein, in what forms the conciliation between the regime of desiring production and the regime of social production is brought about, since, in any case, it is the same production under 2 regimes. If on this socius as a full body there is thus the possibility from going from one side to another, i.e. from the side where the molar aggregates of social production are organized, to this other side, no less collective, where the molecular multiplicities of desiring production are formed, whether and to what extent such a socius can endure the reversal of power, such that desiring production subjugates social production and yet does not destroy it, since it is the same production working under the difference in regime. If there is, and how there comes to be, a formation of subject groups, etc. All right, let's go bit by bit. It would be interesting callback to add a link at the start of the first reading. That is actually where we'll be. Like, that's what we did last time. We didn't record the beginning of this reading. I went back. Someone asked me to find the beginnings of this because they were like, whoa, I was going back. We actually explicitly didn't record this. The group we had very early on, I gave the option. I was like, do we want to record? And they almost unanimously voted against it. And so we didn't for a while. And then over time, none of those people came back, and then over time, that vote changed. It'll be interesting to see what happens this time around. It'll be very interesting to see what happens this time around. But to go. And then, above all, we are not looking for a way out when we say that schizoanalysis as such has strictly no political program to propose. There's a lot of people who claim this is like an anarchist text, which you could argue, I think, pretty convincingly that it's a general anarchist text, anti-state, anti-control, all of that. But as far as like what it proposes, this is a lot of people ask me, even on the stream last night, they were doing this. They're like, so what do you think we should do? Like, are you not, if you're not a communist, what should we be doing? And it's like, well, this is the thing. It's not really about what should the larger program be. Like, that's a fundamental, I think I would phrase it that way. They're deliberately avoiding any programmatic politicking. And they're doing this not because they're evading doing that. They have, and they could, especially Felix, could absolutely elaborate political systems and ideas and ways to go about things. But fundamentally, they don't see this as the way we need to go about it. This is not the methodological way to understand how to sort of exist. Their project, the project of schizoanalysis, the project of desiring production, the project of capitalism and schizophrenia, is intending to distinguish itself from traditional revolutionaries like Lenin, Trotsky, pick someone who writes in this, because all of these things that they do that have been done in the name of revolutionary politics always have organizational programs, a party, a group, an intention, a goal. And they say above all, because to them, this is a foundational element of what they're sort of driving at. It's not a mistake that they're making this claim. They go on, though. If it did have one, it would be grotesque and disquieting at the same time. They're being very, again, the reason they're not stating this stuff out clearly, and they're not naming it, and they're not going down this road, is because it would at once be a monstrous absurdity, because desiring machines to them would have to become bureaucratized, because to them, again, remember, it's about desire being placed not in service of the symbolic representational social order, but instead in control of it. So if they had to name a party apparatus and like build this, and again, there's a lot of like humor in what they're writing here. There's a lot of humor in what they're writing here. If they had to say a political program, it would be something along the lines of the bureaucratization of desiring production, which is horrifying, because it would also mean that you would be repressing, like it's a repression of the representational. But doing so in itself is totalitarian capture of desire itself. So they are like, we're not doing this shit. This is not how we play. This is not what we do. This is not the setup. It does not take itself for a party or even a group. It does not claim to be speaking for the masses. It is outright rejecting Lenin's vanguardism. It's outright rejecting Maoist mass politics, right? It's refusing representation fundamentally. And the big deal for them is that they continue to do this because there is no group that can speak for the masses. They don't claim to be speaking for the masses. There is no speaking for the masses. There is no masses except within the representational delirium of how we understand ourselves socially and how we define this. This is the critique they have of signification and the way desire is ultimately captured inside of it. And I know there's typos here. This is you OCR this fucking book. This is how it turns out. It gets worse at the end of the book. It's the way it goes. No political program, no political program will be elaborated within the framework of schizoanalysis. So if you hear people saying, oh, this is absolutely this, or here's what the politics they're proposing is, like literally they write, no, we're not doing that. We're categorically refusing to do this, and they're flatly stating it. It is not a meta framework to generate a political program. It is not a meta framework for you to find yourself within or the things you're invested within at all. None of that. This is the permanence for them. There is nothing they're doing that is saying, here is what politics should be. Ever. Ever. The next few sentences I really dig because it's snarky French humor at its best, which is still not very good. French humor, what can I say? But I do appreciate it. Finally, schizoanalysis is something that does not claim to be speaking for anything or anyone, not even, in fact, especially not, for psychoanalysis. Nothing more than impressions. The impression that things aren't going well in psychoanalysis and that they haven't been since the start. This is the previous few paragraphs as they reach the end of the book. This is them pre-handling critique. And there are people who will read this book and they're aware of this and this existed. People who just went, well, that's ridiculous. Psychoanalysis works great. Zizek's critique of them is literally this thing. And they're saying, well, wait, no. That their stance is so radical. This is my opinion. They're not necessarily saying this, and they kind of are. The stance they're taking is anti-representational to such an extreme degree, and it extends to psychoanalysis itself. There is no psychoanalysis, right? There is no like simple version of it that is that. There is no truly Freudian inheritors of the true psychoanalytic thought. They're saying that ultimately, and again, they're saying nothing more than impressions. They're saying it like nothing more than impressions. The impression that things aren't going well and that they haven't been since the start. Psychoanalysis has had this corrupt problem, but it's not a corruption of this pure origin of like, oh, we should get back to psychoanalysis. They're saying, no, the thing is, the structure of psychoanalysis was fraught from the get. That's it. From jump, it's been fucked. And that's what their sort of claim has been this entire time. They're not trying to make a good version of psychoanalysis. They're fundamentally stepping away from psychoanalysis. And that's why they're like, schizoanalysis is not speaking for anyone. It's not speaking for psychoanalysis. It's nothing more than impressions. Because again, they're not trying to take it from a psychoanalytic perspective. They're outright saying that it's just impressions. We just get the feeling that like you've been fucked since the start. That's it. That's all we're doing. We're just doing the feelings. It's over cute. I don't know. I don't know about over cute. I have laughed at this passage. We've had this discussion before on this. I get a kick out of it. I think pretty regularly. So I've laughed about it. We are still too competent. We would like to speak in the name of an absolute incompetence. Joined late. Missed the start. Does Deleuze stop Oedipus? Deleuze does not defeat Oedipus, sadly, in this edition, although there is a fan edit. There's a fan edit where he does return, and Guattari saves him at the last minute, and the desiring machines are actually the friends we made along the way, is the lesson. I like this phrasing. We are still too competent. We would like to speak in the name of an absolute incompetence. To me, and I think there's a good chance to a lot of you, Deleuze and Guattari are seen as brilliant. I think both of them were exceptionally brilliant, actually. And I think that their writings on these things are learned and with care, and they've spent time on it, and they are masters of this craft, especially in the ways that what they're writing about and the way they come to it. But this is them outright saying, and there's a reason for this. Again, think about how the inversion of desiring production operates. Think about what they're trying to induce in us as readers. Think about the machine they're trying to create, that is revolutionaries who create revolutions as they escape, not revolutionaries who just escape, because that's nothing interesting to anyone. Too competent means that they're admitting to being too ivory tower, too captured in the codes of their disciplines and the structure of what is allowed to be thought and said within it. They want an absolute incompetence, and this is not ignorance. Incompetence is not the same as ignorance. Incompetence is lack of discipline. Incompetence is the inability to do things as they're supposed to be done. They want to speak from a position outside of psychoanalytic and academic institutions. They don't want to be within it. They're too competent, sadly. They're too competent. And they want to be that. They want to be this other thing. They want Socratic ignorance, but radicalized. They want you to not know. They want to not know as method. Their method is lack of knowing what should be said, but not ignorance. Important distinction to me, for a lot of reasons. And they kind of make this very clear as like how sarcastic they're being. Someone asked us if we'd ever seen a schizophrenic. No, we've never seen one. It's a famous line that people take really badly out of context. And it's absurd in one way, because at Laborde, Guattari saw lots of them. Guattari saw lots of them. Like, this was not a thing, right? Like, he worked at a clinic. He was always working with schizophrenics. He always saw schizophrenics. They're intending to be like really, really overdone here. Deleuze's apocryphal story is that he never actually put himself around it. But again, they're saying we had ever seen a schizophrenic? No, we've never seen one. The point is that they're saying they've never seen the schizophrenic process, the pure revolutionary potential, because the actual thing they're seeing, the schizophrenic they're seeing, isn't just a schizophrenic. It is a clinical case. It is a hyper-repressed, blocked and captured collection of desire. This is distinguishing process from person, like beginner's mind. Not far off, Genos, actually. Not far off at all. This is them saying, the schizophrenic that people refer to, that really shitty YouTubers talk about, that's not who they're talking about. They're talking about the schizophrenic process. They're talking about the revolutionary, if there is such a thing, and they've never seen one. Again, think about what that means in context for Guattari to be saying this. A lot of people are like, oh, it just means that they didn't spend time in the clinic. It's like, okay, well, you've obviously no idea who Guattari is. That's fine. People are something. And they go on. If someone reading this book feels things are fine in psychoanalysis, we're not speaking for him. And for him, we take back everything we've said. This is not as facetious or sarcastic as it may seem. They're making actually a really particular move. They're establishing complicity with whoever is reading this. If who's reading this is someone who sees no crisis and that everything is fine, they know that the critique is meaningless for that person. They know the critique is meaningless for them. They're There is no such thing. I made this case last night on the stream, and I will continue to. There is no such thing as an argument for authority that really is effective unless someone is already inclined towards it. They're trying to appeal to a shared sense that something's wrong. There is no, we are the authorities of psychoanalytic thought. They're very aware they're not. The thing they're doing is different. They're playing in a, you get it, something's fucked up here. And if you don't think something's fucked up, well, then we take back everything we've said. It has nothing, you won't get anything. It's performative. Sure, it's a performative statement, but it is an assertion of withdrawal. And it's a particular move that is refusing traditional dialectics. Just so you, like, this is not, every line in this book is so wonderful, but this is one of those that, again, as they get to the end here, they read Intersecting Lives, the story of the production of this book and how much time they spent on the ending and all, like, there's a lot of stuff in there, but we take back everything we've said is them refusing the traditional, well, look, take what we're saying and work it into what you believe. They're like, no, look, no, it ain't working. We get it. Move on. This is not for you. This is not for you. So what is the relationship between schizoanalysis and politics on the one hand, and between schizoanalysis and psychoanalysis on the other? Well, everything revolves around desiring machines and the production of desire. Hey, this is the book. I'm so confused by this new bot that showed up in YouTube. It's a terrible bot. It's a terrible bot. The energy in here is unmatched tonight. The community vibes are 10 out of 10 right now. No other chat has this level of inside jokes. Hi, just terrible. I suppose technically also may be true. So the rest of this book, there's 3 paragraphs, are focused around sort of answering this. They've drawn this line throughout the entire book between sort of 2 critiques. One that is political, fascist, social. And the other that is psychoanalytic as a large-scale critique. Chapters 2 and chapter 3, respectively, really are focused on these elements. Chapter 4 brings them back together. Chapter 1 involves both. But all of it is really ultimately about one thing. It is about the production of desire. That is it. Desiring machines as they function. That this is their fundamental thesis. It's, well, they may have these 2 critiques, and you can go, oh, what's the political project? Oh, you don't have that. Oh, what's this? Well, psychoanalysis. I think psychoanalysis is fine. So then that's fine. We take back all the critiques. Like, we're attacking your silly little bullshit. Just fuck off with that. We take back everything we've said. So why did we go after these 2 things? Well, it's because these 2 things are basically the best ways for us to go about the pivotal thing, which is desiring production, desiring machines. Politics and psychoanalysis have to be understood through this lens of how they relate to desire's productive capacity. It is the best ways they have to talk about desire's productive capacity, because psychoanalysis and politics are both places where excessive social repression comes from in particular ways. And we can see through the lens of those things how desire, not desire as lack, that's psychoanalysis, or ideology, that's more political and Marxist, but desire as productive. Desire as productive. Schizoanalysis as such does not raise the problem of the nature of the socius to come out of the revolution, does not claim to be identical with the revolution itself. They're not part of what people are expecting, I think, from this book. Even still today, people still recommend, each other. Like, oh, this is a book that'll teach you about revolutionary this or a new way to do psychoanalysis. Like, no, they're specifically refusing post-revolutionary social forms. There's nowhere in here that do they state that. There's nowhere in ATP do they state that either. That it isn't that. This is not Marx telling us about communism. This is not Bakunin's anarchist ideals. Nope, refusal, flat refusal. They're also not conflating theory with revolutionary praxis. The situationists, the Maoists, others who saw theory itself as revolutionary action, they refuse that as well. Schizoanalysis is an analytic practice, a critical practice. It is not a utopian blueprint. It is not praxis philosophy. They refuse it outright in this area, right here. Right? Is everyone following so far? I hope so. So we'll continue. Given a socius, schizoanalysis only asks what place it reserves for desiring production, what generative role desire plays therein, in what forms the conciliation between the regime of desiring production and the regime of social production is brought about, since in any case it is the same production, but under two regimes. It's not technically the whole sentence, but I'm stopping here because there's so much fucking said here. Given a socius, and this is of the three that they've discussed, of the potential of a fourth. The question is how desiring production plays into that. What structural position within the superstructure does desire occupy? What genetic function or productive function does desire have? How does molecular desiring production itself and molar desiring production or social production, which is again the same production, that's kind of their point, how do these things reconcile? Because they are the same production under two regimes. How do we reconcile the impulses that drive you and the social rules that are placed above? Because these aren't two separate regimes. This is not, hey, why don't you get your shit in gear and then you can change the world upwards? No, it's you are part of that, and that is part of you. These are not two domains. This is a single productive, generative, creative process that is ongoing, but has an extraordinary diversity in sort of operational logic. Intensive, extensive, molar, molecular, whatever it may be. And this is pulls from the entire book right here. Again, I'm not going to explain it because that's the point of the book, is to explain that. But this is what they're driving at. And then they continue. Let me change to blue. Is blue okay for you guys to read? You guys tell me what color works best. I've been trying them all at this point, and I'll just say I'm iffy on them. But sorry, only YouTube sees colors, sadly. If on the socius as a full body, there is thus possibility for going from one side to the other, from the side where the molar aggregates of social production are organized to the other side, no less collective, where the molecular multiplicities of desire and production are formed. In this final chapter of the book, they talked extensively about the way that things pass from one side to the other. This is the impulses to the gregarious. They talk about this at length, actually. Good tea. The socius as full body, the body that appropriates the surplus of social production. This has two sides. We have the molar organization of things, which is the conscious social formations, the social formations we deal with, we look at, we see in the world, America, fascism, Trumpianism, MAGA, Democrat Party, DSA, whatever it is. These are molar organization at large, social formations, right? Then we also have molecular production, the multiplicities of impulses that are pushing into all of this, that are generating all of this. Again, they're the same, right? They're the same thing. It's all part of the same pulse, the same process, the same generation. But how these things come together, how they're reconciled is the term that they're going to use. Because the molar is still collective. The molar is no less collective, right? It is not about individual psychology at this moment. It's about the unconscious productivity of the collective. So how do you traverse between one and the other? How do you make your way between these two registers? And they go on. Whether and to what extent such a socius can endure the reversal of power, such that desiring production subjugates social production and does not destroy it, since it is the same production working under difference in regime. If there is, and how there comes to be a formation of subject groups, etc. Okay? Please.
Brooks, can I ask a question?
Please, JK.
Yeah. Can we relate this kind of analysis that he's doing to Bataille's critique of design production? Because for Bataille, all he was a homogeneous socialist that that he's critiquing. You know, that is represents this design production. Is it similar to what they're doing here? They're critiquing that kind of a process of incorporating what is desire, pure desire, and into what is become social desire and production.
Yeah, I would answer just yes, and I would have to go on for a very long time because it is absolutely an influence. I think they're taken from that, but again, Deleuze is deeply informed by his time with, in my mind at this point, especially after reading Klosowski a significant amount. They're too much overlapping. There's a significant play here that is the generative way that the impulses, like the Nietzschean wills, the way desire impulses its way out, it's actually making and producing the social field, and it is desiring production at the same time. That all of this is basically a pulse at once. The way this comes about, and their critique is sort of to say, when you give preference, and Deleuze does this in Logic of Sense, Guattari talks about this in 3 Ecologies, if you're giving preference to the representational layer of things, where you say like, well, look, I'm a white guy. What does that mean? Are you laying the demand on top of it? Or are you stating it as a generative forward sort of descriptive? Are you proscribing what I am? Or am I prescribing what I am in just the statement? Is the representation crushing what desire is able to do in general? That existence that we see, this is their big question with the socialists, because all of the socii that they've talked about, all three, the primitive, the despotic, the capitalist, all three of these are about crushing desiring production in different ways and giving preference and privilege to the social. And their question is that necessary? Because the mistake we're making is presuming that the social is different than desiring production. It's not. And so if it's not, is there another way to traverse the ground between them that shifts that thing to allowing emergence and generation and the creation to be primary? And again, that's where, to your point about the Bataille nodes, like that's Bataille's big jam, is sort of the pure emergence. He gets caught in a little bit of a different web that we can go into depending on how you read him. But I think it's a big one for him, for sure. Someone on YouTube says, does Hofstadter tackle into this when talking about how people think, especially the relationship between molar and molecular? Hofstadter has a handful of places. He gets really close to this. He is stuck in a very particular, like, logical positivist, very abstract view first. The vitalism that I think we're seeing in this, or that we're talking about in the Nietzschean, the Deleuzian desire, or Klosowski's impulses, Hofstadter doesn't have. He's missing that, I think, in a lot of stuff. He tends to privilege the I am a strange loop mentality, like that kind of thing. But he gets really close. There's a reason I have all of his books, because I think he's trying to come at this from a different direction. He's just, I think, he makes a handful of axiomatic assumptions, you could say. To continue JK's thing and sort of build in this, the thing they're driving at here, whether and to what extent a socialist can endure the reversal of power. The question is, if desire dominates social production and isn't captured by it, is that possible? Is that actually possible? Not destroying social production. Because again, they're not trying to eliminate the ability for us to work together. They're not trying to move us all to a catatonic clinical position. That's not their goal. They don't want to destroy social production. But if they can subordinate it, or we could subordinate it to desire and production, wouldn't that be distinguishing itself so deeply from normal revolutionary transformation? And it would avoid like this apocalyptic negation that is assumed by giving desire free rein. It's not giving desire total free rein. It's shifting it. It's shifting the social to being controlled by desire. And since it's the same production, that dichotomy underneath it, that dichotomy is the point. If this is these things, what if this process is actually not two things? What if it's all one thing? And what if it's one thing that we just sort of adjust slightly? Well, then we wouldn't be actually hitting annihilation. We would simply be reconfiguring power relations between the two main regimes, between them. Right? And that's that crossover that they sort of talk about. If there is, and now there comes to be a formation of subject groups, etc. It's not a flippant line. It's a really weird broken English line as far as I'm concerned, because it's not really, again, super well formed in the final. Like a lot of this is really malformed when it comes to sentences. But the question for them is, I think, the same question of anyone who's questioning how to change things, how things can be made for the better, how we can find a liberatory future. Like that's their drive. They want a liberatory future. And can subject groups, and this is, again, this is Guattari's work, groupuscules, which I have a reading of, which I absolutely adore, because we are all groupuscules. Worst term maybe ever invented. It just sounds unpleasant. But Guattari played with this because subject groups, non-hierarchical, desire-affirming collectives, subject groups, they form within a socius. Can they form of their own accord within a socius instead of subjected groups or subjugated groups, depending on how you sort of want to translate that. But it's the subjugated groups are those who are submitting to that larger desire production to social production, who are making that dichotomy real and giving power to one explicitly over the other. And they end, if there is and how there comes to be a formation of subject, these are their questions they want to answer, that they want to get into, that they're leaving to us. This is an open-ended system. Psychoanalytic thought is not. Psychoanalytic thought collapses on itself. It is a triangulatory returning to the truth. We can find the truth. We can get back to the symbols. Well, this is what they're supposed to be saying. This is what you're supposed to be doing. They're doing the opposite of this. They're playing drastically different games. drastically different. And they're really trying to push in the direction of, hey, these are questions that we need to answer. We know where. Please, someone. JK.
So is the schizophrenic liberated and non-productive, and can it sustain itself in this kind of state of desire without production? Non-productive
No.
desire.
That's the clinical entity, because the combination that's very specific is it's desire and production that's stunted, but it's desire and production that is repressed and non-connective. And so when it's non-connective, it's non-social, it's non-generative. When this is happening from the social inwards to that subject that's being sort of repressed. But the setup is one where all of it's happening at once. So the clinical entity that's being repressed, the clinical entity that's gone into catatonia or this whatever, this is produced alongside everyone else, all of us. It's just the way it sort of moves. And that thing that's made, it's not revolutionary. It doesn't do anything. It breaks through the wall. Their terminology they use, and they say it a few times, is that this clinical entity may break through the wall, but it doesn't leave breaks behind it. It doesn't introduce lines of flight into the system. It just exits. And just exiting the social world does nothing. You're not connected to it. You're not able to make sense to anyone anymore. You're not able to do that. And you aren't able to take care of yourself. Like, fundamentally, you're not. And so that's the schiz in action on an individual level through that type of repression. So their question is, well, wait, what if that isn't the only way that this goes? What if someone is able to create these revolutionary breaks as they go, that create revolutionary breaks and that continually are creating revolutionary breaks? And so you reach not capitalism's sort of meta stability, but an even step beyond that, where everything is always creating revolutionary breaks. It's a state of permanent revolution, more or less. That's how I read it.
But the nomad, the nomad is has found a line of flight and is free from being subjugated, right? In that group.
Yes.
Isn't the nomad liberated then?
And again, we can go into 1,000 plateaus at some point. It's not that the nomad is pure liberation. Like, this is not the setup there. The nomad goes around the desert. Great. They go do their thing. War Machine does its thing, but it is engaged alongside or dealing with the state apparatus at various places. The nomadic system is one that is sort of adjusting to as it needs to be. So at points, it is absolutely subjugated. It has to deal with a thing. There is no such thing as a pure nomad. Exactly, James. And so, like, the nomad archetype doesn't really exist. It's instead the position of always dealing with what you need to be in your immediate vicinity, handling it, but not allowing it to sort of overall recrush desire. It's allowing desire to instead place those stories into its own order, is a way I'd probably put it. They have some, again, given any socius, their goal here, and they say particularly, they want to analyze and go through desire's structural position. And this is, again, this is about the nomad, I'm getting there. But desire's generative role, how it's emergent, how it pushes into things, and how molecular desiring production relates to molar social production. Because that relation, that dichotomy that we're seeing that exists, that we're able to sort of watch manifest itself as we're sort of doing things. This is fundamentally the same production under all the other regimes, because it's placing desire at the mercy of social production. So if that's the case, it's clear that we have the ability to traverse between registers. I mean, we're crushing one, we're repressing desire with the molar, but it's clear one does this. Like, this is the thing that sort of happens. So if you can you traverse the other way? Can desiring production subjugate social production? Can it do it without destroying it? Can it create can it create a process in which it's repressing social production? Can, in this particular way, when you traverse this direction, can subject groups form? These are the questions that define schizoanalytic practice to them. And it's never ending. There's no end to this. All of these questions are kind of the point for them. They want to give us a foundation that we're able to build off of and understand processually and logically the questions that we're able to build. Does that make sense, JK?
Well, yeah, but there's been some psychiatric movements that posit that the schizophrenia is a breakthrough and not a breakdown necessarily. And
Yes.
so how does that come about? I mean, Deleuze and Guattari, do they acknowledge that?
They go through that in chapter 2. They go through a lot of the anti-psychiatry movement that considers schizophrenia the breakthrough, and a lot of people quote from that section. I would be more hesitant to say that they're in line with that, because they go out of their way here, and also in interviews around this, Deleuze in his lectures around this, and Guattari in his other works, to very much like look at the world and the way people are produced in it, and to say that the schizophrenic, again, severe autist, the non-functional autistics is the better phrasing really there, is a almost terrifying body horror of existence for desire, because it has nowhere to go except internally and has nothing to connect to except itself. But because it can't generate meaning, it doesn't really have much to connect to at all. So this catatonia, this repetitive functioning, this nightmare sort of that is, especially experienced from the outside, Deleuze was very open about this, that thing that is happening is due to specifically the crushing of desire by the social order, the placement of the axiomatic in certain ways that handles this, that makes a person non-functional, so they break through, but without being able to create revolutions as they go, without being able to have lines of flight. They, as a subject, may break through, but there's no connection with anything anymore. As such, it may be a breakthrough, great, but then they're what? If they're not they're like, it's a real question that I think I've even posed, and it's never a good answer, because that means that person dies. Well, that's the end of that person. Their impact they have is other people have to take care of them. And we are, again, we as humans, as we exist, these collections of desiring machines, do we want that? Do we want desiring production that could emergently be creating extraordinary stuff to be disconnected and then not part of us? And then also on the other end, creating repression as it handles itself, as it puts on us the onus to make sure that people we care about are alive. Reminds me of Beckus Malone. Well, there's a reason they reference Malone a fuck ton in this book. That's kind of the point, is it's not enough to break through. It's not enough to have a revolution. Fundamentally, the impulses of life that are emergent and have created all of this and are all of this have in time become malformed through large-scale social production, which is itself desiring production. But again, in time, at scale, functions in very different ways and has created a repressive regime that crushes itself. And as we're able to be seeing this, and capitalism grants us that ability because it is breaking down old codes where this wasn't visible, where the body without organs wasn't something that could be conceptualized or critiqued. The idea of the meta was not a thing that people had. Like these ideas of ideas of ideas. This thing is very much a part of that capitalist meaning structure because of how capital records and where it is immanently within desiring production. So the question would be, if that's the case, what's one step further? Well, some people have their opinions. D&G go, well, what if what we're seeing, this repression and this breakdown that is bad, what if it could be a breakthrough? What would it need to be a breakthrough? Because for them, breakthrough that does nothing or creates dependency or brutal nightmarish conditions, that's not good. What would it be? Well, to them, and it's this paragraph sort of relaying it, it's not really about the person or the schizophrenic, actually. It's about the relationship desire, the impulses that we interpret, or I should say, the impulses that interpret themselves and then build systems to crush themselves out of various responses and reactions to other impulses. Over time, is there a way for us to shift that so that way that generative process is actually taking charge rather than the cold, static social order that doesn't have the vitality in it in the same way, and have that not repress, but instead be controlled, be in service of? That's their question. And that's the next paragraph or two, I think, touches into it lightly, but that's the big focus as I understand it at this point. Does that answer anything at all, JK, or did I just miss your point completely?
It's you're saying that they're ambiguous about what the what the answer is, and it's
Exceptionally so.
Yeah.
And to me, and again, this is a Brooks interpretation. Not alone in this. I know other people do. This is not like they said this is what they're doing. Well, I think they did, but the ambiguity is the point. If they said, do these things, people would become attached to lionizing schizophrenics or pushing everyone into a clinic or doing X, Y, and Z cynically, because it's not born of emergent desire. It's instead born of people attaching themselves to a symbolic structure, and that symbolic structure getting everything in line. The same way that I think you could definitely say, in no way are they saying everyone should become trans or everyone is gay or everyone is straight. There are people who have done this and made these interpretations. And the first thing that happens is that people go, well, that's what we all should be. And they begin pushing for that or driving themselves towards it to make themselves in line with effectively the party apparatus. And that's their critique of all these other revolutionary movements, which you can also go back and look at all the revolutionary movements, or even just look at like the last 10 years or 15 years in American politics or French politics, actually, Jesus Christ, or Chinese politics. The push towards party or towards unity or towards certainty or the narrative structure, that thing happens when you've said, this is what you ought to be doing. This is the goal. Do this, do that. And they're like, we're not doing that. And they're intentionally not doing that. To them, it's about returning to desiring production. And what does that mean? And they're just like, hey, look, we just wanted to show you this is how we see things. Do what you will, is kind of the idea. Would it be more accurate to say we are all neither? Well, more accurate to say that like the fantasy or the delirium of ego is itself the problem, because we're nothing. But also we are something, because then you have, one of my favorite examples of this is, if you're big into like, Eastern Buddhist religions, it's worth taking a look through, Vietnam or Korea, where Buddhism and the we are nothing was actually weaponized in how it taught soldiers in Southeast Asia to handle themselves and to die, because they literally used it as rhetoric and goal and justification for horrifying. Like, all these things can be used for repression if it's a goal. Always. Always, always, always. We can always be repressed. And that's the thing. That I read it as them trying to not say schizoanalysis says do this or be an anarchist or are you a communist? Because that's like fucking meaningless. We watched Haas and Daniel Tutt last night. Both of them said, oh, we're communists. The idea that these two people, one, have any conception of what communism is, two, actually share meaningfully what that is insane. But that they're able to find a common ground is horrifying. But that's their clarion call. Oh, we're that. I'm that. We're all going in the right direction. And that's what they want to avoid. That's what they want to explicitly avoid. Like to me, that's the thing they're trying to explicitly avoid. And instead, the simplest question that they want to talk about is, if social repression can crush desiring production, if social production can crush that, even though there's the same process, couldn't we talk about how that traversal happens? And can't that mean we can fuck around with that traversal? And if we do, what then? Can you have a subjugated or subject group in a place where desire's crushing social? Does desire have to crush social? What does it mean to control social? They're leaving that open because to them, it's not about saying, here is our thing. It's saying, all this other stuff's broken. Here's a new method of understanding fundamentally the world. Yeah. And we'll get through this because it's you should come to Italy, hear how anyone labels anything as communism. You should come to America. Everything is communism here. Like California is communism. The New York Stock Exchange is communism. Biden and Ukraine were communists. It ain't just Italy. It's a fascist thing. It's everything is fascist. Yeah, it sucks. But the thing is, like, when you start going down this road, it's very easy for people to misinterpret and for people to drag in certain directions. This is the next paragraph, which, unless someone's got a thing on here, I'm kind of ready to move on. Yeah, central banks are communism. Yeah. Oh, yeah. We had someone in stream last night make a comment that was a half joke that the computing cloud is communist. And I was like, half joke? That's not even, one, not funny. Two, what's serious about that? Turns out kind of. And it's like, So yeah. We are all Charlie Kirk. That's right. If everyone's ready, let's knock out the second to last paragraph. If someone retorts, oh, please. I hear JK.
Sorry about that.
No, you're good. Did you have something? Because I didn't mean to like step on you.
Oh, I just dropped my chopsticks.
Fair enough. Off we go then. If someone retorts that we are claiming the famous rights to laziness, to non-productivity, to dream and fantasy production, once again, we are quite pleased, since we haven't stopped saying the opposite, and that desiring production produces the real, that desire has little to do with fantasy and dream. As opposed to Reich, schizoanalysis makes no distinction in nature between political economy and libidinal economy. Schizoanalysis merely asks, what are the machinic, social, and technical indices on a socius that open to desiring machines that enter into the parts, wheels, and motors of these machines, as much as they cause them to enter into their own parts, wheels, and motors? Everyone knows that a schizo is a machine. All schizos say this, and not just little Joey. The question to be asked is whether schizophrenics are the living machines of a dead labor, which are then contrasted to the dead machines of living labor as organized in capitalism, or whether instead desiring, technical, and social machines joined together in a process of schizophrenic production that thereafter has no more schizophrenics to produce. In her Lettre aux Ministers, Maud Manone, I letter to the ministers, writes, quote, one of these adolescents, declared unfit for studies, does admirably well in his third-level class, provided he works some in mechanics. He has a passion for mechanics. The man in the garage has been his best therapist. If we take mechanics away from him, he will become schizophrenic again. End quote. Mama Noni, 100% worth reading, by the way. Her intention is not to praise ergotherapy or the virtues of social adaptation. She marks the point where the social machine, the technical machine, and the desire machine join closely together and bring their regimes into communications. She asks if our society can handle that and what it is worth if it can't. This is indeed the direction the social, technical, scientific, and artistic machines take when they are revolutionary. They form desire machines, for which they are already the index in their own regime, at the same time that the desiring machines form them in the regime that is theirs and as a position of desire. This paragraph is just them like super fucking laying out all of schizoanalytic thought. So it's a really fucking good paragraph, by the way. It's just a really fucking good paragraph. What else? Boop, boop. Let's do blue today. All right. If someone retorts, we are claiming famous rights to laziness, to non-productivity, to dream and fantasy production, once again, we're quite pleased since we haven't stopped saying the opposite, and that desiring production produces the real, and that desire has little to do with fantasy and dream. There is a contingent of people on the left. Didn't they reference this earlier? They've referenced many things earlier. This entire ending of the book is a reference to earlier, many times. They're not saying people shouldn't work. It's not an anti-stance. That, again, it's not that they're perpendicular to things. That's not what they're doing. They're not like, oh, psychoanalysis, we're opposing it. It's anti-Oedipus. It's psychoanalysis. They're not against it dead on, because that just would be reinforcing the same thing, that the things they're driving at and what they're pushing is not this interpretation in this way. Their whole point is that desire itself is productive. The desire, as being productive, directly produces the real. It does not produce fantasies. It does not produce representations. Desire produces the real, right? And this is the critical distinction between them and schizoanalysis, and on the other hand, psychoanalytic thought. This is excessive. It's an excessive distinction, but they're being very big at the end here to be like, no, we are not Freudian. We're not Lacanian. Desire is not fantasy. Desire is not your dreams or your wants. It is not that. Desire is material. It is a productive force, not an imaginary compensation that is residual of other productive or interactions on the imaginary register. Like, this is straight up them saying no. And they've directly opposed themselves to Reich, who they've spoken very lovely about for a lot. They've issued a critique a lot that they're going to plainly state here. Schizoanalysis makes no distinction in nature between political economy and libidinal economy. Reich, it was big for him that you have these parallel economic systems, the political and the libidinal, right? And that they require coordination. This is not unheard of also in how people interpret this work, by the way. There's the social political system, and then there's the regime and way that we invest desire. And then we as individuals reconcile that. No. Political economy is libidinal economy, and also vice versa. They're not analogs. There's no distinction. There's no distinction in nature. Okay? Like, there you go. Is this the classic Spinozist move? This is, this is the Deleuze thing to do. But it's a fundamental thing at this point, because when they say there's no distinction in nature, it means there is no difference in kind. The difference is regime, scale, you might say. This is the entire book is this. Everything is desire and production. Everything is political economy. They're the same thing. There's no divide. Please.
So if they're saying that that there's no there's no symbolic order like the Lacanian symbolic order, the Freudian symbolic order, is there is for schizoanalysis a different kind of symbology? Is it a different kind of order, or because they seem to be anti-Oedipal symbolic order, but is there
they are anti-Oedipal but they're not anti-Oedipus complex. They're anti-Oedipal, and it's a specific formulation. It's that as names are called, and that's again their universal history they go through in chapter 3 builds this. The coded way words and scratchings and recordings have shifted over time and have merged with power in the despotic and then utilized with capital to record directly. This way that the symbolic has taken on and its own dimension is part of the way time and politics and desire has worked itself sort of into this position. For Lacan, the fundamentals of humanity is that we exist, and then at some point we realize that we cannot directly engage the world because we experience language. Once we experience language, which comes at us all at once, we no longer are able to just see things for what they are, but instead we necessarily categorize and break things into Brooks, TV, lights, things, stuff. But as babies, we don't do this. Babies just see everything at once. It all hits at once. They're able to engage the real, but they don't know this until they have language. Then they have language, it's broken. That break creates the thing, the ticklish thing that ultimately produces the forces of desire, which wrap around that and the symbolic order creates. It's complicated, but it's sort of baked in. It's an ontological truism that we have this lack. They're like, this is almost a mistake in time. Like, they're like, Lacan's not wrong. It's not that this never happened, but what he's talking about is sort of these leftovers from a very particular way power was structured inside of the despotic era, where symbols became on high, written on high, demanded on high, and the king and his control over what words meant what and what things were what tumbled downwards. And we still have parts of that. There's no like hard cut between the three socia. It's just the way that production sort of bubbles in and out of them. But even that, or the primitive, where their words didn't work like that at all. There was spoken and then there was graphism. There was no spoken word. That's not really a thing that we did, which meant that everything could be contingent and based on the social pressures and the codification that happened socially. But even that and the creation of that and the way that power was structured there determined how those things work, determined social positions that then in time have built up to where we're at. So it's not so much that we're in a place and, the symbolic order we need and whatever. No, it's that in time, desire and people who have come before us and raised us and built the society around us and that we live in the social world that creates and is the primary place of repression that is pushing in on anyone who is born, all of their desiring machines and all the desiring machines that exist to work in certain ways. That is actually not really accidental. It's the nature of how power was structured over time and the integration of large groups of humans into a more bureaucratized state apparatus under a king, and then ultimately into a non-king state apparatus via capital where we have a market economy. These systems in time exist, but they don't have tautological or underlying ontological like truism. They're generated. They were emergent just as anything else in time, over time, across time. And so the anti-Oedipus that they're talking about is specifically saying that there is no fundamental symbolic structure to how people need to exist or how a person does exist, that there is no universal that desiring production as it's dealing with the world, it just produces. And the world represses it into specific channels or into particular investments that enable the world to continue as it is. Primary of repression is social, always. That's number one thing they talked about. So they're moving now to make the move of saying, when we talk about political economy, we need to understand that right now, and this is right now, everyone watching this, I don't care where you fucking are, all the people that exist, the political economy that exists and the libidinal economy that you may be thinking is your own personal. It's not. But the libidinal economy of things, they're not two things. They're two regimes of the same thing. The way that capital for Marx shifts at scale versus a small amount of capital that someone may have in wages. The same would be true that the desire you have and how it's trying to be emergent or whatever it is, the desire that's underneath your ego. I'm hesitant to even use that term. It is malformed socially because at large is massive, but it also falls back on itself almost due to its size and changes everything underneath it. The way that and I've used the video game metaphor a lot, but I think it's when we talk about the meta of a video game, oh, this gun does the most damage. This is the way you're supposed to play this character or this role. What do you mean you picked fucking Bloodseeker as a fucking position 5 in Dota? You fucking asshole. Don't you understand the game? There's no rules in the game that say this, but this is the way you play because this is the way it's worked before and more times than you've ever been able to count. So you have to get in line. And so you learn those rules. Well, the meta of the world is no different. When you boot up the world and your desire machines are going, they're told, no, sorry, you have a penis. You are supposed to be big and strong. No, sorry. Oh, wait, you have a vag. You are supposed to be dainty and sweet. And also, by the way, there's the two things, and they're separate. We don't ever deal. That this social system and these ideas of meaning that came from the king down, that again is itself a generative position through time sociologically, is still there, but it's not there in the sense of a tautological, ontological truism about us. We are experiencing it through our desire being directly invested in it. Everyone here is experiencing it that way. Then they phrase it as social production is desire and production under determinate circumstances. Yes. It's a phenomenological, it's close. It's a very complex thing to sort of talk about, but they're very particular about saying this field of potentials, the virtual space that is desiring production. It's all the possible connections that can be made and the potentiality of things. And this is I also liken it to Spinoza, potestas and potentias. Spinoza's entire idea of power one has to exercise and the power one can exercise. And there's a fine line between them. We've all experienced. It's the old, I've been using it on my kids when they say, Dad, can I have a cookie? I don't know. Can you? Because what they're asking is made. They're asking for permission. They're asking if it's within their potestas, their legally allowed or socially allowed world. These are not differences in anything but regime. It's not different kinds. It's all the same desire, fundamentally. And that's when Reich makes his distinction, and he's being particular. And Reich had these two parallel economies, and it was a big deal to him because it was about, for him, reconciling the two. This is how he read Freud, and I think a lot of people also read Freud, and they read D&G, not far from that, actually. But they go on to say, if you consider the video game thing, the goal is to create new metas through trying new things and techniques that are off meta. Well, see, here's the thing. The video game thing only works so far because video games are abstract mathematical creations. There's nothing emergent generally in a video game. It has to be so exceptionally complex to allow people to break the meta. But the real world doesn't have that. We are told it's similar. It's fucking not. In Minecraft, if I place a water block, it does one specific thing. If I place a bucket of water somewhere, there's a billion fucking possibilities of what could happen. And also ones I can't even anticipate. And that difference is, again, where my analogy, it's why I hate analogies, but it helps sometimes. It's where it breaks down because, and this is to use the line they use for Spinoza, no one knows what a body can do. No one has a concept that they know what the body is supposed to do or how it can do this or what it's able to do here, but no one knows what a body can do. We don't have that list. In a video game, you do. I know literally the mathematical numbers of every item, every character, every damage, every speed, every way that every character works. And you can work out pretty quick which character is faster, hits harder, does more damage, which one casts spells, which one does healing, blah, blah, blah. You can do that. That's not how the real world works. Women don't have, at large, less points in aggression than men. They do if you take it at large, but no woman determinately has that. Desiring production is this. This is the reality of the thing, that every single individual that's being crushed underneath the weight of what it means to be a woman or to be a man. There's men who should not be competing in boxing. There are women who should be competing in boxing. There are men who shouldn't be competing against certain women. There are people who shouldn't be competing against certain people. There are men who shouldn't be competing against certain men. That there are no rules to these things that work sort of hard and fast. That's not really how this sets up. You have to take at-large rules, but those at-large rules determine who does what. And the moment you hear that a woman can't really compete on the same level as a man, are you even going to fucking try if you're a woman or if you're an effeminate man? Why would you even fucking try? Desire and production is not wildly far from this. When from birth, you are corrected and told, no, don't do that. Your hand is slapped away. You're told no, you're corrected. You're told to sit still. You're told not to talk. Whatever it is. These are things that you think of as happening to you. They're not really. Because outside of this, the social world that you're understanding through the inference of everything you're investing in that happens from birth, as parents walk by, as they have a bad day, as they complain to each other, you may not know what a thing is, but you take in that same investment, like a sieve through these fucking people that the social world comes in with. The social pressures they experience, you experience. The hunger they experience, you experience. The stress they experience, you experience. The anger at the world they experience, you experience. You have all of this as you grow. Desire does too, and desire responds and invests directly in them. This is the emergent nature of it as you go, as the world goes, as everything goes. And at some point, you vote for somebody. And then everyone goes, why'd you choose that? My God. I can't believe you voted for anyone. I voted for nobody, and I'm very proud of myself. Sorry for the ramble. I'm frustrated by things. But they go on. They go on. And I think they make a lovely point here. Because they're talking here about Reich's versus theirs, right? Reich's versus their setup and what they're playing with. That schizoanalysis is doing something different than separating the two. Because it sounds like, and you can go back in the book and find where they're talking about one or the other. Chapter 2 is primarily about psychoanalytic repression, which is like personal and desire-based and not really large-scale. So chapter 3 is totally social and political. So you could take it this way. You shouldn't. They go out of their way to try to not do that. And they do their best not to. They try. Some people still fuck it up. But to them, they're like, no, there's the thing. Schizoanalysis merely asks, what are the machinic, social, and technical indices on a socius that opened to desiring machines, that enters into the parts, wheels, and motors of these machines, as much as they cause them to enter into their own parts, wheels, and motors. This is the schizoanalytic process. This is All of it. This is the entire thing stated really, really nicely. Once in a while, they do that. The method for schizoanalysis is this, as they're kind of laying it out here. Again, this is how I read these sentences, so do whatever you want. But the first thing you do is you identify the points where the socius opens to desiring machines. And it's specifically not through symbolic or imaginary or dream elements, but indices, indicators, signs, symptoms, symptoms, if you want to take a Lacanian term. This is very late Lacan. This is like good, interesting late Lacan that they're pulling out here. Well, at least part of it. But it's specifically the machinic, social, and technical indices. This is not a one-way determination. This is reciprocal interpenetration of the social and desiring production. Not talking about symbolic, they have that in there. Oh, they have this. Oh, they have that. Stop giving other people your fucking meaning and pretending that you're putting them in your head. You're not. That the social and technical machines enter desiring machines components directly. They're being quite serious here. And the other way as well. Ports, motors, wheels. This is the machinic assemblage. This is not an organic totality. Explicitly. This is not an organic totality. This is arranged components assembled into a thing. The phrase that I want to really focus on here, that is, again, all of this is an incredibly unique way to sort of look at the world, and really provocative and I think powerful. But the phrase they say here, enter into the parts, wheels, and motors of the machines as much as they cause them to enter into their own parts, wheels, and motors. There is a bidirectional causality that is front and center. That's the deal, right? Like, these things go back and forth. They interpenetrate. They're crossing that threshold continuously. This is not that the social determines desire. This is not that the desire determines the social. This is a mutual generation. In the French, it says schizoanalyse. They make that comment a lot, actually. Poop and butts are a big thing in psychoanalysis. We went through this in chapter 2. We'll go through it again the next time we get there. But poop and butts are huge for psychoanalytics. Shit is money. Self-control is potty training. There's solar anus. There's a reason we've got that. Anyone on YouTube, feel free to throw up your sunny butts. The whole point of this is that D&G want our buttholes to defeat capitalism. They want us to realize that we have no buttholes. That's kind of the point. That, like, we call it that, but it defines it as function. The name we give it defines its function, but it's a many things. Same with the mouth, same with the organs can do many things, but they're productive, they're connective, they're specific. We can redefine many things. We can change this. No one knows what a body can do. And again, the bidirectional causality is what I want to focus on before we move on, because it's kind of going to layer into the next kind of few sentences. It is not that the social determines desire. It's not the desire determines the social. It is coextensive, co-creative. Coextensive may be less so. Co-creative. It is not that they extend at once or are extensively interweaved. It is that they are together generated at the same time. They're generated at once. They are the same generation. It's a mutual composition, as I read it. They cause them to enter into as they enter into the parts. This is the setup. And this is the phrasing, and it's this is going to be personal, by the way, this next little thing we're going to talk about, because this reference is fucking hardcore, I think. Everyone knows the schizo is a machine. All schizos say this, not just little Joey. Bruno Bettelheim has a book, a case study. It's a book, I guess, now. You can buy it. It's pamphlet. It's part of other things. It's called Joey, a Mechanical Boy. And it is, as much as that may sound in, I think, today's terms, a little cold, it is an incredibly warm and interesting portrait of an autistic child who believed he was a machine. That's it. Like, straight up believed he was a machine. By the way, this is why the term schizophrenic covered both of these things. The kid was super fucking autistic. But for him, he needed to plug in to function. And Bettelheim goes through, the kid fucking faked a cord to plug into the wall so he could recharge. And it worked. Like, when he fed the kid's delusion, it didn't break him. The kid was actually able to do more. The kid was able to do things. The kid was a machine. Actually, everyone's a machine. Actually, there's a lot more happening here. Schizophrenics and autistics correctly perceive themselves as machinic because every subject is made of desiring machines. They are desiring machines. They aren't able to see themselves as a united totality. They just see themselves as machine. All the parts, all the things. That's the thing. Joey was never delusional. Not in that sense. Like, he had a delusion. I would use that phrase because I would say he's not like a machine as we traditionally talk about it. But he's not delusional or broken. He understood in almost an over-aware, hyper-aware, machinic nature of his own subjectivity. And the ironic turn they make with this sentence where they say, everyone knows. This is Felix. 100% this is a Felix line through like either one of them. This is like the most dickish, pointed, angry scream as I read it. Again, as I read it, where they're like, hey, all you clinicians, all you psychiatrists, all you fucking people out there who've treated these people, you fucking know they're actually machines. You dismiss it as symptom. They articulate truth. That's the argument they're making. And by the way, anyone who's raised a child, all of them, this is their thing. This is what kids do. This is all kids. This is not interesting. Joey is a unique case in that he was like super explicit about it. And he was extremely autistic. He couldn't function and tell these things. It's Empty Fortress is the book. Empty Fortress. 100% worth reading. And really, I think, touching. Not a good analysis. Bettelheim did the psychoanalytic thing, but the analysis overall showed care. I believe showed care and really was trying to be concerned with Joey and take Joey where he's at in a really interesting way. Really interesting way, I think. I think it's worth reading because we're about to get into Maud Manani's version of this, and again, this is the thing to be doing. So the line, and I think it's to go with, the question to be asked is whether schizophrenics are the living machines of a dead labor, which are then contrasted to the dead machines of living labor as organized in capitalism. So, Marx, Klosowski, Deleuze, this is a very common way to talk about capital. Capital's dead labor. When you think about it, it's actually a pretty eloquent way to talk about it, I think. I think it's a pretty eloquent way to talk about it. You have a business. We all have a business. I'm the evil capitalist, and all of you are working for me. And as you produce and you make pizzas, we sell all of them. Your labor turns into pizza, turns into selling, and then that money I take, the excess, I pay you a little bit, great, but I have profit. I put that money into a vault. That money was your labor. that in that exchange, it was absolutely your labor. We earned it from your labor. And now I've taken that and it's dead. And if I take that money and I go buy pizza somewhere else, I've animated it for a moment. Or if I invest it in a business, I've animated it until the next profit. And then that profit is also dead labor. It's a really fascinating thing. For Marx, it's the way that capital becomes congealed within the machinery of industrial capitalism. This is constant capital, CMC, variable, constant versus variable. The constant capital is dead labor. It's built into machines. It's built into investments, built into stocks. These are not vital things. These are statistics at best, dead, inanimate shit. Living labor is workers and what they're doing and making a variable capital in this sense. What they're doing is reversing this. They're reversing Marx, which is a lot. It's a lot. But I think, let's break it down. In capitalism, workers are living labor operating dead machines. The dead machines are made of dead labor, dead capital, dead, right? That thing. Schizophrenics, though, like Joey, and like the other cases they've talked about, they're the inverse of that. They're living machines. They are animated by psychosis, by non-normative mental states. But they're living machines of dead labor. Right? Their productive capacity is blocked, is mortified, is dead. They're catatonic. They're broken off. They're not able to deal with things. So schizophrenia as capitalism's waste byproduct puts us in a place where living beings are transformed into broken machines, produced and built by capitalism at large. Yeah, the question to be asked is whether schizophrenics are the living machines of dead labor, which are then contrasted to the dead machines of living labor as organized in capitalism. Yeah. This is what we're doing. This is our space, our world. This is our thing. This is their critique of our system as it is. Or, boop, 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 boop. Come on. Oh, oop. 1 sec. All right, there. Or whether instead desiring technical and social machines join together in a process of schizophrenic production that thereafter has no more schizophrenics to produce. Oh, what if? What if? That other thing, that's what capitalism is doing. Isn't it funny? We've got these living machines of dead labor alongside the dead labor, the dead machines made by living labor. Yeah. 1 sec. Yeah, that's what they said. Dead machines of living labor in capitalism. But what if we just fuck this all up? Break it up. What if instead desiring technical and social machines join together in a process of schizophrenic production that has no schizophrenics to produce? What if desiring technical and social machines converge in this moment, this production that is existing not by a paranoiac process pushing down, but instead an emergent schizophrenic process that is itself deterritorialized. It is a decoded process of production itself that eliminates the need to produce schizophrenics. The clinical patient, not the process. The clinical patient. The clinical patient. If social production operated according to the logic of desire, rather than capturing desire, there would be no blocking desiring machines. And as such, you'd have no one manifesting as clinical schizophrenics. Schizophrenia as process could be universalized. Schizophrenia as illness could be eliminated. Riker says, I just remembered a factory worker went into psychosis, tried to connect herself to the appliances she was building. It was the premise of the movie, and it's a wonderful, it's from the director of Parasite, by the way. I'm a cyborg, but that's okay. And it's really, really, really good. And yes, you should rewatch it because you are very much connecting the way I connect with that as a thing. Very, 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 very much. But they go on. Because they want to talk about a very specific example. Okay. The lettres aux ministères. There you go. They don't translate it because I don't think it's been translated to English, actually. So it's probably easier to search that way anyway. So I'm not going to fuck around with it terribly much. But they say, in her writing, Maud Manoni writes, one of these adolescents, declared unfit for studies, does admirably well in a third-level class, provided he works some in mechanics. He has a passion for mechanics. The man in the garage has been his best therapist. If we take mechanics away from him, he will become schizophrenic again. So, Manoni, I'm not going to say is like, I put Manoni in like the same camp as Guattari. Very, very big into traditional psychoanalysis, but also big in really pushing the boundaries of what that was and really spent time trying to figure out how to do so. Again, I think Guattari made major leaps, but Manoni's kind of amazing. And this experimental school she founded, one second, my phone is going and making noises for some reason. You will go on silent mode. In her experimental school, here she's writing about one of the kids in it. And this kid who could not do academic work on its own thrived when given this mechanical space, shop class. But it's vocational training, you could say. But it's not like as like third place prize. It's not like a consolation for the kid. The functioning of this child in trying to be part of this school as a thing needed this. The challenge we have, and we'll get through this, but like she's bringing this up, it's this third level class. I can't remember what age this was. This was weird times, weird school, weird shit to deal with. It's by Chan Wook, director of Old Boy. Was it old? Really? I thought it was, oh, I'm dumb. Was it Chan Wook? One second, I have to look this up now because everyone's correcting me and I feel very stupid. Fine. That's fine. That's fine. I'm a cyborg and that's okay. By the way, if anyone finds that they ever did like a high-res version of this, let me know, because I haven't been able to find it. It is Park Chan-wook. God damn it. It is Park Chan-wook. Well, I guess I'm a racist. God damn it. God damn it. Lady Vengeance was so good, too. Why did I think it was? I don't know why I thought that. God damn it. It's not Parasite director. No, I know. I know that now. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Keep telling me that. It's going to really help me put that behind me. But she goes in. Maud Manoni goes in on this and says, but wait, kid's failing and having trouble with this. It's not really working well, but it's doing well when mechanical work is included, which, by the way, is really abnormal in the academic settings as a thing. But she says he has a passion for mechanics. This is not an aptitude for it. The wording is particular, and in the rest of the writing, Maud Manoni goes into what this means and why they're using passion specifically, because this is about the impulses, the enjoyment, the connective process. It's an object of libidinal cathexis for this child. This isn't about cognitive skills. He's not just better at it. It's not that he has aptitude. That's not what she's referenced. Sorry, I always say she with Maud Manoni. I've had people correct me. It doesn't matter. I don't care. I know why Maud. It's because Maud. I can't help it. Maud. the point is that desire is here investing in technical machines. It's not just human objects and the story of shop or the idea of it. The passions are there. The man in the garage, his best therapist. That's not a joke. That's not like a light commentary thing happening here. The thing is, the garage is a clinic to this child. This is not metaphor. Traditionally, when we talk about psychoanalytic help, and this is what Manoni's work here is about, we talk about therapeutic through interpretive relations, not technical relations. And this is about technical relations first. And this is Guattari's method. Like, this is Guattari going, hey, how you doing? How you doing? I have a little whole thing on institutional psychotherapy and how there should be multiple therapeutic agents dealing with anyone. And yeah, just saying, how you doing? Because that's the deal for him. Like, that's entirely Guattari's like major point. And I think a lot of people have played with. I think it's really great. But Manoni has the last line there that I want to mention. If we take mechanics away from him, he will become schizophrenic again. The phrasing here, and it gets schizophrenic, autistic, and unfunctional. Recognizing that the way that this kid is finding himself and connecting to the world through this mechanical intervention, this technical intervention directly, these indices that are able to be done, not in some larger symbolic thing, but this is the thing. But schizophrenia will show back up if we stop. Well, okay. So schizophrenia, first off, is not and autism too, by the way, is not an endogenous condition. Really want to upset people? Here's a conversation you can fucking have. No one is autistic. That's not how it works. You are not a thing. The schizophrenia, the autism, various things pop up in various organizations and various setups. You display, you perform these things because of various elements, but it's not endogenous. It's not the same as you have AIDS or cancer. These things are transitive. Sure, you can maybe deal with it. They're endogenous to you. This is not what autism or schizophrenia is. It's about, as they show it, and again, there's a lot of stuff to be said here. And I'm not interested in debating this, just so everyone knows. It is the result of blocked connections between desiring and technical machines. The immediate connection that a desiring machine can have with a technical machine, the blocking of that, the inability for it to connect, that relation to be broken. Yes, it's the relation. That relation to be broken, this is where it pops up. If you remove the opening, the mechanics of this, and desiring machines become blocked again, it'll reproduce those clinical symptoms. It's a different way to talk about a lot of these things, but I find it more correct, more interesting. Schizophrenia is this social technical problem then. Autism, social technical problem. It isn't an individual pathology for us to lock people away with. This is what happens when society can't handle the needs of desiring production. That's where it comes from. I by the way, yeah, it ain't vaccines. And they say, for Maud, they say for Maud, her intention is not to praise the ergotherapy or the virtues of social adaptation. She marks the point where the social machine, the technical machine, and the desiring machine join closely together and bring their regimes into communication. They up front want to just sort of stop an immediate, obvious misreading. She is not endorsing occupational therapy. She's not talking about adjusting the social order of things. You could misread it very easily that way. Ergotherapy is the teaching of life skills. Ergonomics, this is same underneath thing. Yeah, the kids long for the minds. Exactly, August. Boy, we should get the children all in factories. That's clearly what DNG are saying. No. It's not that. It's not about that setup. The point isn't adapting the patient to society, or vice versa, really. It's about showing where society fails to accommodate desiring production and produces a particular subjectivity. If you think about it as a long line of production, if at some point your koosh ball is coming out as a rubber ball, you don't go, well, I guess we bought the wrong rubber. Well, I guess, who we were selling to can deal with it. Instead, you go through and you go, oh, look, here's the parts that are blocked. Here's the broken pieces. Let's refigure and talk about this and accommodate the production that's needed. They're driving more towards that. Yeah, they want you to get vocational skills. She marks the point where the social machine, technical machine, design machine join closely together, bring their regimes into communication. That's the phrasing. That's the conjunctive moment for Maud Manoni and for them. There's a reason to bring it out. This is the conjunctive moment where all three types of machines connect, and the different regimes, the different organizational logics of all of these elements communicate, where you find resonances across it, where the connection is vibrant and vibratory and responsive. This is not synthesis. This is not fusion. This is communication and resonance between heterogeneous regimes. Okay? The social machine, the structure of the institution, the technical machine, the actual mechanical assemblages and arrangements of things that are there, and desiring machines, the libidinal productive machines. When all three of these connect, new possibilities emerge. Communication, as we talked about in the last paragraph, is kind of the big deal. How do you exchange across this bridge, a gap of this tripartite union? Because you're not talking about reducing it to the technical, reducing it to desire, reducing it to the social. How do you allow communication? Because that's desiring production. That's a desiring machine properly. It's not about desire being only there. It's not about symbolic, larger scale, social order, hierarchy being only there and crushing the rest. It's not about the technical machine. All three of these. It's reciprocal determination like in DNR. Yes. But communication is the big thrust that they're adding here and becomes, I think, central to them. Has been. Logic of Sense goes through the nature of this. It's one of the things that Guattari really, really liked about the book is it did have a different way of sense production within the way sentence structures and meaning is generated through the heterogeneous versus homogeneous. Guattari had already been working on a lot of this, to be fair, but this is what they're bringing, the heterogeneous elements that can communicate without being crushed. Because again, difference is the base. If you didn't know that about Deleuze, kind of a big deal. Wasn't Guattari also in favor of pharmacological treatment for patients? Yeah, they're not against drugs. They're not pro-drugs, and they certainly aren't for like recreational usage of drugs. But they're not against any of those things. Like, deal with things as they come. Yeah. I'm not against pharmacological treatment. I'm against whatever fucking bullshit weird story people may have. Sure, that sucks, but drugs are good. They help people. They make things easier, better, allow us to do things, work around us in the way that we were malformed when we were younger. Fine cheese is a proper drug. I'm having tea. Tea's a phenomenal drug. And we get to the end here of this paragraph. She asks, they say, she asks if our society can handle that and what it is worth if it can't. This is the whole piece, the letter ministers, the letter to ministers, is about this. Like, this kid needs this, or he'll go back. Can society tolerate and accommodate these connections? If it can't, isn't society worthless? Isn't a society that can't handle this type of connection, that can't create or allow people to have these that doesn't enable this, isn't it a worthless shit fucking nothing? If we measure it by its ability to handle the needs of desiring production, which again, it is, and it's born of, and it owes everything to. There's no separation there. Like, we're not asking society to be a therapeutic softbox. That's not the thing they're pushing. But can we allow desiring machines to just function? Can we allow a real relationship with the impulses of desire to freely express themselves? This is every thinker that they've talked about in this, that we've talked about, that we do. This is a Nietzsche. What's the value of society if it can't accept? What Marx's critique of this, society's alienation, is identical to this. Marcuse's performance versus pleasure principle. That if this is something that society can't do, what worth is it? I think it's a fair question. And this is indeed the direction the social, technical, scientific, and artistic machines take when they are revolutionary. They form desiring machines, for which they are already the index in their own regime, at the same time that the desiring machines form them in the regime that is theirs, and as a position of desire. I love it. I love this a lot. The natural revolutionary character, which they've gone through most of chapter 4 of all of these machines, all of them, even social, by the way. It's a bidirectional formation. These machines form desiring machines, but are already indices of desiring machines within the regime that they're part of. That's how they function. And simultaneously, desiring machines form those machines within desire's regime itself. There is not a causal priority to this. There's not one then the other. There's no cart before the horse or horse before the cart. There is just a cart and horse. That's just what it is. The reciprocal constitution and creation of this is what they're driving at. The position of desire that finishes this paragraph as a position of desire, they say. These things are established as points where desire invests. They're positions of desire that are being invested. And a revolutionary, as they went through, and as we've talked about, is someone who establishes the communication between these regimes without subordination of one really to the other. That's a revolutionary. They stand at that precipice, enable that communication, and don't dominate or synthesize or control. They enable. They enable desiring production. So when they're open to desiring production rather than capturing, when they function as indices of desire within their own logic, as they are simultaneously formed by desiring machines and social machines, and they operate as positions where desire directly invests. This is the revolutionary position of these machines. And so, mostly this paragraph at large, and I'm not going to be able to show the whole thing because, not going to be able to show the whole thing, obviously, because it's on 2 different pages, but they break with a handful of people and then they pull Mononi back in, who they've gone over before. They're trying to go sort of preventative critique, I think you could say, against interpretations that they are asking people to withdraw into fantasy or schizophrenic breaks, which we've all sadly dealt with and seen that this is very common. But they're literally laying out there's no emphasis on fantasy here. And that's fantasy with a PH or an F, I guess, really. They're not talking about that. They're separating their materialism from this weird idealistic interpretation. They're breaking with Reich, and they open to break with Reich because there is no distinction in nature between political and libidinal economy. These are the same productions, ultimately. And with Mononi's case of the adolescent, what they do is they bring out the way that the kid has connection to mechanics and how this prevents his schizophrenic relapse. And how Maud is writing the ministers and going, fucking, can we do this? This would fix things. Can we fucking, what the fuck is the point of society if we can't do this? It's not a question of whether schizophrenics are the living machines of dead labor, which is the waste of capitalism, but whether desiring and technical and social machines can conjunct in a schizophrenic production that eliminates the need to produce schizophrenics at all. That is the kid in shop class with a shop teacher, more or less, the mechanic class. That's what's happening there. These things are coming together and it eliminates clinical schizophrenia, the practice. And this is not about normalization. It's not about any of those things that a lot of people sort of misinterpret and run with. Again, we've seen them, we know, and it's very frustrating. And I'm just going to sort of leave it at that. But the whole point is to establish like an ethical measure of social formations. And you can measure ethically the social space by its capacity to accommodate desiring production. Does it crush it? Does it use it? Does it enable it? Does it allow communication there? Does it do these things? And we have a lot of ways to find out because we have artistic machines, scientific machines, technical machines, and social machines that can be revolutionary. And the revolutionary ones are those that form desiring machines while being formed by desiring machines reciprocally. They function as indices of desire within their own regime, while desiring machines form them within desire's regime. Simultaneous co-constitution of these positions of desire. This is revolutionary character. This is what they're driving at. And this is the thrust of what is now going to be the next final paragraph as they make their way forward, to understand that it is like not programmatic transformation, not really. It's a simplified version. But instead, it's about opening communication between heterogeneous regimes that are productive. Desire and social and technical. That's how I'd phrase that. Resonates for me as disability struggles are similar in large part. This is, Deleuze is used a lot in disability studies. There's a lot of terms for that. I think we've had people in the server who work literally in like academia and they call them CRIP studies. CRIP, like they try to reclaim terms. The reason this is used so often, Deleuze is very popular in that field, is because this is his argument. It's Roger I'm talking about, but it's not just Roger. There's a lot of people we've had. Will, who used to be part of the server and all that. The fundamental thing that Deleuze and Guattari are doing here is saying this is because we look at these people as disabled, because we're looking at it from a normative, particular way that society was built. But the question would be, if people are this way and society is built this way, why can't we build society slightly differently in order to enable desiring production and these other things to function, to enable these things to connect? What worth is society socially if we can't do that? And that is a fucking good question. And yeah, iteration, it's similar in naming to queer studies. It's almost identical. And there's a few others. I got banned from Twitter years ago because I had an argument where I used the term, my favorite queer theorist, blah, blah, blah. And they were like, but you're not queer. And I'm like, what the fuck are you? It was weird. So people are funny. Slurs and reclaiming them is a thing. I'm just glad that we just haven't done that with racial studies as a thing. But those fields are huge, and D&G is, it again, extend this across everything. It's a shift in understanding how people engage their world at a fundamental level. It's not looking at the desire of a person or how a person imagines things or what a person wants. To be a little harsher in capitalist terms, Steve Jobs put it best: people have no idea what they want. Tell them what they want. Yeah, that's what capitalism does. Very good, Stephen. Very well done. That's the deal. And they're like, instead of that, how does desire and production get handled here? How is it allowed to connect? How is it allowed to resonate? How is it allowed to have these valences of communication? And that's the drive. So they go on. And this is the last paragraph of the entire book, by the way. That's what a fucking 2 years looks like. Almost 2 years, by the way. 2 years, it's like 1 year and 11 months. And we are not going to read the reference notes. Someone made that joke last time. Get it out of your system. So they have their final bit. Is that really the whole thing? Yes, this is the entire book of Anti-Oedipus, correct. It looks a lot easier when you look at it like this. But yeah, this is Anti-Oedipus. Introduction, terrible. And then they have the preface written also terribly. And then, yeah, the book actually shows up. Is it? There it is. Anti-Oedipus. Desiring machines. It is at work everywhere, functioning smoothly at times. So yeah, this entire book. Fascinating. So let's finish it off. What, finally, is the opposition between schizoanalysis and psychoanalysis when the negative and positive tasks of schizoanalysis are taken as a whole? We constantly contrasted two sorts of unconscious, or two interpretations of the unconscious. The one schizoanalytic, the other psychoanalytic. The one schizophrenic, the other neurotic Oedipal. The one abstract, non-figurative, the other imaginary, but also the one really concrete, the other symbolic. The one machinic, the other structural. The one molecular, microphysical, and micrological. The other molar, or statistical. The one material, the other ideological. The one productive, the other expressive. We have seen how the negative task of schizoanalysis must be violent, brutal, defamiliarizing, de-Oedipalizing, decastrating, undoing theater, dream, and fantasy, decoding, deterritorializing, a terrible curettage, a malevolent activity. But everything happens at the same time. For at the same time, the process is liberated, the process of desiring production, following its molecular lines of escape that already define the mechanic's task of the schizoanalyst. And the lines of escape are still full molar or social investment, at grips with the whole social field. So that the task of schizoanalysis is ultimately that of discovering, for every case, the nature of the libidinal investments of the social field, their possible internal conflicts, their relationships with the preconscious investments of the same field, their possible conflicts with these. In short, the entire interplay of the desiring machines and the repression of desire. Completing the process and not arresting it, not making it turn about in the void, not assigning it a goal. We'll never go too far with the deterritorialization, the decoding of flux, for the new earth, in truth, the earth will one day become a place of healing, is not to be found in the neurotic or perverse reterritorializations that arrest the process or assign it goals. It is no more behind than ahead. It coincides with the completion of the process of desiring production, this process that is always and already complete as it proceeds, and as long as it proceeds. It therefore remains for us to see how, effectively, simultaneously, these various tasks of schizoanalysis proceed. I like this book. So let's go back. All right. What finally is the opposition between schizoanalysis and psychoanalysis when the negative and positive tasks of schizoanalysis are taken as a whole? Well, this is framing the final paragraph. I mean, I'm not going to explain the answer to this, but it's them saying, like, what fundamentally distinguishes schizoanalysis from psychoanalysis when considering the destructive and constructive dimensions to the positive and negative tasks. Finally, they kind of are culmination of every argument, everything coming. You're literally going to see the entire book basically on a speed run. This is like glitching speed run through Anti-Oedipus in this paragraph, right? Because they're not talking here about like isolated differences, but instead total oppositions in every aspect, the negative and positive tasks wholly, but considering them at once as a whole, right? As a whole. You get it? As a whole? That's not intended to be perverse. Oh fuck, I fucked up. Come on, why didn't you start the pen? Stupid thing. There it is. We constantly contrasted two sorts of unconscious or two interpretations of the unconscious. They go on. This one's for fucking forever. All right, we're going to just like end up going through each one of these like individually. Okay. I'm not going to reread it. I'm going to reread each one. Okay. So what they're doing is they're enumerating everything in this entire fucking book and every binary opposition that structures their entire project. Every pair that I'm about to go through, that they establish here, that I just scribbled over, that I didn't want to reread because it's so much fucking tongue twistery jargon. We're going to go through each one. Don't worry. But each one itself establishes a fundamental incommensurability between the schizoanalytic and the psychoanalytic versions of the unconscious. So they are literally laying out, here are the ways it differs when taken as a whole. The one is schizophrenic versus neurotic Oedipal. This is process versus structure. This is deterritorialization versus reterritorialization. They say abstract and non-figurative versus the imaginary. This is at Lacan and others, but they're saying, no, we're talking about the production of the real versus the production of representation and images. This ain't that. They're talking about the really concrete versus the symbolic, the material flux of the real concrete versus signifying chains of Lacan's symbolic order. They're talking about the machinic versus the structural, the arrangements and connectivity and communication between connected elements versus linguistic damnable structures of Saussure or Levi-Strauss. They're talking about the molecular, microphysical, micrological versus the molar and statistical. They're talking about, on their side, singularities Everyone else is talking about aggregates. They're talking about the intensive. Everyone else is talking about the extensive, fundamentally. They're talking about the material versus the ideological. The force of the flux versus belief. They're talking about the productive versus the expressive. The production of the real versus the representation of the real. They're playing up a paradoxical thing here. And they do this throughout this, and you'll see like a lot of these things. You thought schizoanalysis could pick at both? No. It's tough because it seems, and again, if the molar is just desire, they're saying, no, wait, all the stuff you understand, that's just desire and production too. But that's not the fundamental stuff. The social order is not the fundamental stuff. Desiring production is the fundamental stuff. Desire is the fundamental stuff. Desire is the material of things. The schizoanalytic unconscious is abstract, but also really concrete. Psychoanalytic unconscious is imaginary and symbolic, which is representational linguistic, but also ideological, which is a false consciousness and plays in a secondary sort of space. That the things they're going through here, they're outlining particularly how schizoanalysis opposes and how all the parts of they're talking about oppose traditional psychoanalysis. Desire and production is all these things. There is no difference between them. There is no symbolic, not fundamentally. It is desiring production under determinate conditions. So schizoanalysis does pick at both, but it doesn't play with symbols, ever. Symbols still exist. People have a symbolic understanding of things. They're raised in an Oedipalized capitalist environment. They see beauty, they see love, they see sex, they see desire, they see success, they see these things. Those are determinate manifestations and expressions of desiring production, fundamentally. They have no symbolic value themselves. That's not a thing. Symbolic value isn't a thing. They're indices of desiring production. So psychoanalysis goes about it by saying, hey, why doesn't everyone just talk about their symbols? Oh, your dad, well, blah, blah, connect, blah, 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 all this shit. All of that stuff's garbage. It's just garbage. It's abstractions following abstractions. Bullshit. It's bullshit. They're indices of the underlying production of desire that is actively producing the real. Producing reality, not representing it. So yes, all of it is desire. And yes, you can pick at both, but you can't pick apart symbols with symbols. So the earlier question if DNG had an alternate symbolics would be no. Correct. Absolutely the case. They do not have an alternative symbology. Their entire structure, again, I'm going to say the linguistic structure of a Saussure, for example, or traditional semiotics, falls apart in there's a reason that they go with Yumslevian semiotics and glossomatics. Completely different way of understanding all of those things. And again, it's not that we don't experience symbols, but that symbols don't themselves have like their own transcendent meaning. They're produced. Everything's produced at once. Everything's produced at once. So they go. And this is kind of the point of why they just did that exercise and why we went through it. We have seen how the negative task of schizoanalysis must be violent and brutal, defamiliarizing, de-Oedipalizing, decastrating, undoing theater, dream, and fantasy, decoding, deterritorializing, a terrible cortege of malevolent activity. This is what you do to the symbolic. Explicitly what you do to the symbolic. Like this is the whole point. This is the destructive, critical dimension without any euphemisms here. That everything's removing, breaking down, stripping away, cutting away. They use the term curettage. It's a surgical term for scraping tissue. Like it's the pleasant version that I could describe would be if you've ever had like a deep teeth cleaning and they're scraping things against the dental curettage. It's also stripping things from bone or other parts of the body. Other places, you could say. This is not a gentle therapy. This is not massaging. This is malevolent. They say it explicitly. This is an aggressive destruction of the psychoanalytic apparatus and the symbolic apparatus that we sort of live within and are stuck with, to be frank. We are stuck with. But we can understand. So they go on. But everything happens at the same time. For at the same time the process is liberated, the process of desiring production following its molecular lines of escape that already define the mechanic's task of the schizoanalyst. I kind of want to focus on this last little sentence here. It's good. Everything happens at the same time. They have stated multiple times that the negative and positive task of schizoanalysis, the breaking down, then the building up and understanding of indices and all of that stuff, the simultaneity of this is important. Negative and positive tasks are simultaneous. This is not a sequence. You don't break someone down and then build them up. You don't deconstruct, then construct. It's instead deconstruction as construction. Every deterritorialization is already itself functionally new connections. Okay? This is anti-dialectic as a thing. Depending on how you talk about it. This is anti-synthesis, thesis, antithesis, synthesis bullshit. This is anti-that. This is about simultaneity. This is Nietzschean revaluation, I would say. Spinoza, who Deleuze 100% is like, he writes about this in his 2 books on Spinoza. Expressionism is wonderful, by the way. For Spinoza, destruction of inadequate ideas is adequate knowledge, which is a crazy thing to realize and take that moment. This is Klosowski's same thing, that there is no such thing as negation, because to understand negation is a positive act, and therefore you're creating negation. This is not far from that same kind of play, but it's saying when things are inadequate ideas, when we have symbolic and representational understandings of things that is crushing desire and production and ourselves, when we fundamentally have that breakdown, if we do it in a way that makes us understand that what it is and how that worked, and not replacing it with, we're breaking it down and replacing it with love of the Father or other stupid shit. That's deconstruction, construction. But if we deconstruct properly, we're taking the inadequate idea and breaking it apart, and as we go, seeing the indices. But as we do so, we're actually fundamentally creating connections and new understandings of the process. It is adequate knowledge to destroy inadequate ideas. And they go on, for at the same time the process is liberated. The process of desiring production following its molecular lines of escape that already define the mechanic's task of a schizoanalyst. When we break the apparatus, the symbolic, representational, Oedipal, psychoanalytic apparatus, and we don't do it by breaking it and replacing it with something else. That's deconstruction. When we properly are doing it, desiring production's process is liberated in the act by creating those connections. It's given ways to follow its lines of escape. Right? Molecular lines of escape is the phrasing they use. The lines of flight is what I think I prefer as a terminology. It's lines of flight. I think a lot of people are more used to, but the submolar, the underneath, the unconscious intensive level is where this happens. These lines already define the schizoanalyst's positive task as mechanic, as tinkerer. They're not an interpreter. You don't interpret a machine. You're a technician who understands what knocks and noises and sounds and connections ultimately mean for that machine, who facilitates the connection of parts and machinic elements. Liberation is not a goal achieved after destruction. The goal is simultaneous to the destruction construction. And they go on. And the lines of escape, lines of flight, are still full molar or social investment at grips with the whole social field, so that the task of schizoanalysis is ultimately that of discovering for every case the nature of the libidinal investments of the social field, their possible internal conflicts, their relationships with the preconscious investments of the same field, their possible conflicts with these. In short, the entire interplay of the desire machines and their repression of desire. Hey, this is basically summing up chapter 4. That's chapter 4. That's it. That's all chapter 4. Molecular lines of escape do not leave the social field. It's not how it works. Because these lines of flight are actually full molar or social investments at grips with the whole social field. They're actively engaged with the social domain, with the entire regime. So, schizoanalysis, it has a task. Easy. Each case. Discover for every case. Each case specifically. Not overall. Oh, here's the rules of everything. You need to have mother, and not that. No. Every case, discover the nature of the libidinal investments in the social field. This is how desire invests social formations. Fascist, revolutionary, reformist, whatever it may be, right? Also, the internal conflicts with libidinal investments, which are contradictions within the unconscious investments directly. So if you have a revolutionary desire, but also fascist desires, these things coexist. We all have them in some capacity. We have impulses towards a lot of different things. A lot of things. Understanding that. Internal conflicts within our libidinal investments. Again, not the meaning of them, but finding those indices and those elements within the unconscious investments. Then go through and find the relationship to preconscious investments of the same field. How unconscious libidinal investments relate to those conscious understandings of class interests and ideological belief. Okay. Find the conflicts between these, the different levels, right? The preconscious and unconscious investments, they diverge. Working class people have investments in fascism. Preconsciously, though, they oppose it, but they do that. And ultimately find how desire operates and how it's blocked inside of this. That's the entire interplay of desiring machines and repression. This is the pulling all of it back in. All of chapter 4, everything they've talked about. These are the steps for it. And again, why it's important to understand the distinction. When they talk about the symbolic, they are not saying the symbolic is a thing that necessarily is part of, no. We exist in time and history and place. Understand that. This is not an idealist, utopian view of things. Oh, here's how we are supposed to be. No. We exist now because of the past, and we will soon exist because of now. And everything that comes in with that comes in with that. Everything. And we have already invested the social field, the historical field, everything. You do not come fully formed. You are part of a process, and you are an ongoing one. We all are. Understanding the distinction between this preconscious class interest and the unconscious libidinal investment, understanding that these things can be opposed. Masses can desire their own repression unwittingly or wittingly. It doesn't even matter at that point. All of this comes down to, as you do this, it's a big one, completing the process, not arresting it, not making it turn about in the void, not assigning it a goal. That last one really throws people for a fucking loop. It's really tough. Try to exist without a goal. It's a fun one, but completing the process and not arresting it. They've gone through this many times, and I do love the D.H. Lawrence. We've turned love into a thing that must be everlasting instead of a process that can end. We've ruined the passions of it as a thing. The schizophrenic process completes, but starts again. Don't block it at these safe neurotic positions, like the Oedipal positions, or the relationship one has with father-mother, or the triangulation there. These are safe positions the neurotic wants in order to get along with things in society. But this holds it, blocks it, sustains it like floating and hovering. Don't do that. Don't arrest it in position. Allow it to complete. Don't make it turn about in this void through this hovering, letting it spin without connection. This is the process turning on itself, having nowhere to go, having nothing else to do. And do not, with that, assign it a goal. Don't say there is a predetermined endpoint, that there's an evolutionary process towards some thing that makes us better or worse. Or my favorite is the, hello, I have a little monster here.
Little monster says, Violet followed me down here.
Violet followed you down here too? Hey, I'm finishing my third reading of this book. You don't care, but it's pretty cool. Do you like books?
Yeah. Can I have candy?
Can you have candy? Go upstairs. I'll be upstairs in a minute. Go, go, go. We can do food later. Hey. Go, you stinkers. Or you can hang out. You can't play drums. Please don't play drums. Oh God, please don't play drums. Please don't play drums. Okay, they're gone. God, it's the last thing I need right now is just my kids coming in and playing fucking drums. Drums would be sick. 3-year-old playing drums, a little bit less sick. Especially during this. That last bit, the completing a process without a goal, it feels paradoxical. I mean, it is. It's completely paradoxical. Processes complete as they proceed. A watch turning, every part inside of it, every turn completes, but in turn it turns. In turn that turns. In turn it turns. Completing the process is allowing the process to complete. So it ends, but it completes and proceeds. Completing is about sustenance, not reaching an end point. It does feel like it ends. And there's that nervousness and that terror, because this is, to touch into Klosowski, the terror of understanding this comes with that part of the eternal return, the understanding that this moment has occurred. My meta understanding that I'm having, this high tonality, I'll return to it, which means actually I've been here and I've forgotten. And in fact, the I that I am now who knows will die and end, but I don't die. I continue the process of creation, the generation that I am the result of. That process continues. I am an effect of it. I am at the end of that. Having a goal that I be a certain thing, bad. Completing the process, good, because the process completes and I get to be born again consistently and constantly. We're always born again in Christ, our Lord. And see, suddenly you don't understand. This is now an evangelical channel. It's not far from how I mean it, though, because in every moment when you are reborn, that process of creation that is your experience and your ability to infect the world with impulses and then retain it back, all of this connection back and forth is productive, and you're constantly producing new. The eternal return of the different. Yes, it's exactly it. This is that. And they say, and this is talk about a fucking thing that people take fucking wrong all the time. We'll never go too far with the deterritorialization, the decoding of flux. For the new earth, in truth, the new earth will one day become a place of healing, is not to be found in the neurotic or perverse reterritorializations that arrest the process or assign it goals. It is no more behind than ahead, coincides with the completion of the process of desiring production. This process, always and already complete, as it proceeds, and as long as it proceeds. They open with this provocation. We'll never go too far with the decoding of flux. There is a fear that is underlying that, and Deleuze experiences it. He talks about it, that schizoanalysis leads to chaos or madness, that schizophrenia as chaos, as an existence of catatonia and a separation, that's where we're heading. Schizoanalysis will lead to this madness. The danger is actually insufficient deterritorialization. That's what creates the clinical entities. That's the recapturing of desire and desire machines. The reterritorialization of desire is what creates the danger. It's not too much. The flux of things, not flow, the flux, it's not culo, it's flux. It's the decoded current of desire that's happening, the decoding of that. And they have this line, for the new earth. And it's, this is Nietzsche. If no one knew this is Nietzsche. This is Zarathustra. This is thus both Zarathustra on the gift-giving virtue, my notes say. Earth as a healing place, beyond resentment. This new earth. Hi, Dexter. You can stay and listen if you want. This new earth is not neurotic, Oedipal, or perverse. It's not structured with the transgression still coded within it and the reterritorialization still there. It's not in reterritorializations. It's not behind and it's not ahead. It is not a lost origin of a primitive society, if only we could get back to, or the 1950s, or whatever the fuck. And it's not some future techno-utopia of communism or whatever the fuck. It is the process coinciding with itself. The new earth is the process itself of desiring production. He left. And it's always already complete. Always already complete. The process is complete in how it proceeds, not after completion. Again, completion of a process means the process continues. The paradox is there. The process is complete as it proceeds. Completion is not an endpoint. Completion is a mode of operation. As long as it continues to deterritorialize, it is the new earth. Revolution is not goal, not status quo. Revolution is praxis. Revolution is praxis. Did I go robotic? Oh, okay, good. The last line. It's a good line. It's a good line. So we're going to head down to it. Because this is remember how they said there's no political project? It therefore remains for us to see how effectively, simultaneously, these various tests of schizoanalysis proceed. This is actually like the best way to end this book, and it seems like not that at all. Because it seems like, wait, you're just like leaving it open-ended? Well, sort of, but also the anticlimax is to end the book with there is no spoon, don't care about the spoon. It's not far from that. Completing the process without arresting it. Don't make the process turn into void. Don't give it goals. Don't keep it hovering. Allow the process to complete so the process can continue. That's the thing. Nietzsche's new earth that will one day become a place of healing that Zarathustra was talking about. Well, for them, the thing they're saying is that the new earth is here. It's actually actively happening constantly, but it's desiring production itself. The new earth is not goal, but practice. It is completion, not endpoint. It is mode of operation. Revolution is desiring production's ongoing process, sustained, not achieved. And for them, they go, oh, and as such, we will take a look. We will see. Oh, yes, it remains for us how this will actually operate in practice. We'll be watching because it's happening. Yeah. That's the end of Anti-Oedipus. Does anyone have a question or comment? Someone's asking, I missed. Can you go back to start from the book from the beginning? I will be next week. So as much as you were making a joke, for those of you who are unaware, hello, I'm Brooks. This is the Quarantine Collective. And we have finished reading Anti-Oedipus for the third time. And next week, we will begin our fourth reading.
At Jordan-KB9WT super chatted $10. Hooray.
It feels weird, man. It feels weird, man. Feels very weird, man. Feels good, man. Feels weird, man. Feels good. Thank you, Jordan, very much. And yes, it'll be the same time next week, actually. And we'll be starting again. I may take a week off because I'm going to try to figure out how I want to do this reading this next time. I've added some stuff for those of you who have been watching for the last 2 or 3 years through multiple readings. You'll notice I didn't used to do the highlighting. I want to do the highlighting. I think the highlighting is an interesting way to do this. I think there's a better way to also do this along with the new translation, along with proper annotations as we go. So less a general reading, but maybe even a construction of a real reading of Anti-Oedipus that then people can have. Like, not that it'll be a final one. We'll end up doing a 5th or 6th, and I'm going to do this till I fucking die. And people don't realize if I'm not joking. But I think that's where I'm going to end up. Is we're going to end up trying to figure out a new way to do this reading this next time that's a little bit more ongoing constructive. We've seen a lot more people. I mean, the channel's grown. When I first started this reading, we had, I think, 1,500 subs. So we're crossing 12,000. Add Subway Surfers to the corner. That kind of thing is actually kind of the idea. How can it be used in gender discourse, in your opinion? Well, that's, I think, the best writing on this is about understanding and breaking down what gender is fundamentally, which is already falling apart. Like, you don't need Deleuze and this other stuff to understand that these old social codes that we've all lived under are dying. And they're dying at a faster rate than they've ever died. The idea that there is a social truth that we all believe in has become incredibly complicated and really fascinating, actually, in its own way. So how do you understand that? Well, if you get into gender, what is that? And is it anything more than a symbolic structure? And that, by the way, does go for the scientific version of that, which are just measurements of singular things, not with all of the others. There's no such thing as measuring a woman not in a vacuum. You're testing X, Y. Okay, but what about these other things? No, we're just doing that because that's what that test does. The test doesn't imply anything else. It's just that thing. What is your XY? Doesn't imply gender. It doesn't imply sex, actually, even. Doesn't imply your organs. There's a million other things that imply that because every part of science functions differently. We did a reading of What is Philosophy. Highly recommend it. Very, very good. That thing, when you start talking about how these things work and how gender functions, the first thing to do, they went through it. We just went through the list of steps. Like as a thing is you go through and you first start looking at what are the symbolic attachments that people have at large, and you work from there. They've outlined this. We just went through all of the steps, I want to say, of schizoanalysis. So do that. Do the destructive, constructive tasks simultaneously, build something new. It's not hard to do. People are doing it rarely because it's we're starting to get to a point, I think, where more people are understanding that things are broken in a fundamental way. And that it's not just, oh, let's go back. There's no going back. That's not how any of this fucking works. So yeah, gender studies. There's some very good writers on gender studies. I was doing the whole bent on Ciara Kremen, Ciara Kremen, Cremin, who I think goes by she now, also they, but also has a dead name book, Colin Kremen, who cross-dressed famously as a professor in Australia and walked into class fully in dress and makeup and everything. And it was a big scandal, but it also didn't really matter. And she wrote a phenomenal book called Man-Made Woman. Genuinely good. Also, Future is Feminine. Wonderful. These are very interesting schizoanalytic studies in gender. She's not alone. There's a lot of people doing good stuff. The new edition used her new name. Thank God. So I can start. This is the worst thing. Is like, oh, who wrote that? Ciara Kremen? I can't find it. Colin Kremen. Yeah. Good book. Their book on video games. Not great, but it's also, it's okay. Yeah, it's I think it's going to be an interesting thing once you start taking it down and doing stuff. Like that's the whole point. So, speaking of ATP, I'm starting ATP soon. Read this in your own sense. Yeah. So one of the things we're never going to do here, and I shouldn't say we'll never do.
Here I go, anti-anything.
Ho, ho.
At John KC 9544 super chatted $10. Wanna give money anyways, but also wanna boost the question, will this next reading be documented in a nice playlist?
Yes, this one is actually in a nice playlist too. We just didn't have the first section and a half, first chapter and a half, because I mean, I don't fault people. They didn't want to be on YouTube, so we didn't live stream. But I'm going to be live streaming all this next one, and it's going to be, again, I'm going to be spending the next week or two figuring out exactly. I've got some ideas already about how I want to set it up, because just 2 hours of me talking and then blah, 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 with nothing afterwards that can be shared, I think is not great. One of the reasons I've spent a lot of time on this format, and you guys have seen this go through a few iterations, the way that we're reading, is this is actually PureRef. PureRef is a photographer's platform. If you've ever done like, I don't know, any of those Lightroom style apps where it's like you put a bunch of photos and then you can zoom in really, really tight. These are all images I pulled out of a PDF. And as such, you can literally just move them around or rearrange them however you fucking want. And the thing that's interesting is you can also layer them on top of each other, create other images and pop them in. And so you can actually draw directly in it, and you can actually annotate pretty cleanly. So the goal is to actually get to a point where I have more of an interactive system for actually people who want to read along or want to listen to it, because this next one is also going to be podcasted. I'm going to get it back on Spotify because the old reading, I'm really not happy with it. The reading that's on Spotify, none of this one has been on there because it's a pain in the ass. But I want to be able to have something that people can read along with, and that they can pause, they can click, it's basically an annotated Anti-Oedipus, is kind of the idea. If you've ever seen the annotated Alice in Wonderland, kind of inspired by that sort of thinking. But it's a complicated thing that I've been trying to figure out. So it's going to be a week, maybe two, but our next reading is going to be in January and next year, which is going to be, I think, pretty exciting, I think. And I'm pretty jazzed about the entire thing. So yeah. Use it for art references. Oh, it's phenomenal for art. Like, again, if you're drawing, if you're doing anything art-wise, it's hard for me to even, like, I can't overstate how amazing Pure Ref is. Very, very good, exceptionally, like, efficient memory-wise. You don't need a monster machine to run it, and you can see my stupid gigantic marks that sort of marked out whatever that was. I don't even know what that was. It has its own sort of language for all of these things, which is kind of nice, actually. So you can sketch in, you can go in nice and tight. Let's draw. You can go over here. Hi. Look at hi. But then like that then becomes its own object that you can then move around and do shit with. Layers suck there. But you can move it around, make its own thing. So then you have like lots of things to sort of map out the book, which I feel is important. So yeah, we'll see. When did we start reading AO? As the QC? March 11th or 12th, I want to say, of 2020. Maybe the 13th was the first reading. And there's been breaks in there. This third reading, this started end of February 2023, I think. Yeah, 2023. It's just under 2 years. We're just under 2 years for this one. Brooks ate the rest of the first reading group like Kronos. We have the first reading of AO. We do a little fanfare for it, and we get a bunch of people. It's kind of like now, like there's a bunch of people who don't come to the everyday reading, which again, I get. It's a fucking weekend. It's holiday, all that stuff. People are here. But like the first reading people show up to, and then the numbers dwindle pretty quick. It's kind of a fascinating setup. Again, I find fascinating. But this reading is about 2 years old. And then the next reading will probably take longer because we're going to be doing a lot more review and secondary stuff. And I've got to figure that out. So it might be a week or two. I don't know. But Thursdays, we are absolutely still doing, and we're going to continue Klosowski for the next 2 weeks, which will be great. What's the defunct old version on iTunes podcast? That's the second reading on iTunes. At some point in a stream a week ago, I stated Deleuze was a very religious person. What did you mean by this? It's a facetious comment, sort of, but I've seen Deleuze talk. I've seen and watched lectures. I've read all of his writing. I've missed nothing at this point. It's not a joke. But when we generally talk about people being religious, it's a pejorative. I don't really mean it that way. Not in this sense. Deleuze very much had his version of understanding how things worked, a God of sorts, the Spinozist God, the one all. And I think he very much had significant investment in it that I appreciate. Like, again, it's a religious, no, but again, what does religious mean? And I think there's interesting ways to sort of talk about that. So that was, yeah. There's no religion. There's just practice or training people do. I tend to also agree with that. Sayers has a wonderful book on religion. And again, you start getting into this point where it was in just like, how would you call Spinoza a theorist? That's not really in jest, Rudd. Like that's in jest only insofar as I'm actually making a real point there. Yeah. Do I have a date for the Kintsugi video on Michael Burns to come out? No. The Kintsugi, I'm probably not going to do the one on Michael Burns. I did that live, and I think that live stream is fine. There are things I went back that I wasn't happy with, and life isn't enough right now. There's not enough time in the day. I've got two little tiny monsters who are going through learning. Dexter's old enough now that he's like, I'm starting to try to get him into coding and drawing and other skill sets. And it's a lot. And like, we're having to make choices about history lessons. He's 8. So it's first, second, third grade stuff, but he's way beyond that for other things. So it's kind of tough. So that sucks. Time-wise, that sucks. And then I've got Operation Inflation, which is effectively full-time. Even though I'm not down protesting with Kid every day, it's full-time. It's so much fucking work. And we're aiming at the president is doing a State of the Union in like a month or two. And it's going to be a watershed moment for people. And I think we're going to be there in force. So it's going to be it's a lot to prepare and a lot to set up. So that's been tiring. And then all of you people. And then on top of it, I've got like 3 other projects I'm working on that actually are like important. The food truck idea coming along, we're skipping that for now. Yeah. What's a God going to do in a universe that doesn't stay still? I mean, Spinoza's God. The problem with his system is the metaphysics to change. Sure, God would be change itself. It's the chaos. It is the everything. When people talk about God, they talk about a perfect creation that shouldn't change. You should read Michel Serres' Religion. I would highly recommend you read Religion. It's a phenomenal book. Phenomenal book. Very phenomenal book. I missed that. Operation Inflation, which is a political thing that Ken and I, another streamer, and I started, that has been going very strong. I was in the BBC 2 days ago. It's been a weird 6 months. Been a weird 6 months. We were going to set up and do a food truck that was sort of donating food, but also a place for donations and a place to have costumes and have them there and deliver them. The idea ended up becoming over complex because of regulations and a whole bunch of stuff. It's a long story. It's a shame, but so we've got other things we're doing. So yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't the French revolutionaries wanted to create their own humanist religion? I'm sure they did. Like all of them do. They all want to be God or create God at least. How much money do we need to send you for the full-time stream? I don't know. I don't know if we can, I can forego Operation Inflation, but we're not at full-time stream yet. I think I'll say we're not there yet, but I don't want to, I know a lot of people, it's YouTube. My audience is not filled with millionaires. I'm sure a few of you are doing lovely, but I have no desire to like the money you do send me. And I'm genuinely grateful for every single person who's ever thrown even $5 or $2. We had people yesterday sending dong from Vietnam, as well as rupees from India. And it's only $2 or $3, but I know that that's not the same thing as it is. I appreciate the shit out of all of it. I don't want people to be like, oh, I should be throwing lots of money at Brooks. No, take care of yourself and take care of things. People around you, especially. Arachne says, have you considered ever doing a live stream to the YouTube channel Deleuze Philosophy? I like Deleuze Philosophy, and there are things that I would critique or that I would like to have discussions with the person behind it, but it's not like bad philosophy. And it's not, I don't like just watching videos unless I get explicit permission that that's fine, which I didn't get. I wrote, no, it didn't respond, which is fine. But like Zentapir, you know what? We're going to fucking watch some Zentapir. Zentapir was like, fucking, yeah, watch my shit. That I will watch all day. Maybe one of the best channels on the internet, by the way. And people don't understand why it's amazing. And that's what makes it even better. and it's filled with AI content.
Here I go anti-anything.
Ho, ho.
At Lone Pantalones 8284 super chatted $10. I am very appreciative of the Owl Reads. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you for coming and joining. Genuinely, it makes it much better when I have people who are here to interact. It sounds like I'm lecturing, I know, and it's tough not to because I am who I am, I guess. I'm a megalomaniac in my own way. But the entirety of it is like, as a purpose, me getting that feedback, being challenged, being forced to describe things. JK, for example, who I fucking adore. I think JK left. But JK has been part of these readings for like 2.5, 3 years now, and asks all kinds of questions that are, some are off the wall, some are very direct, and each one of them makes me go, what the fuck? That's a great question. It's a great question. And I don't have answers to some of them. Boop, 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 boop. And then we go here, and I go whoop, whoop, we go boop. This is Zentapir. This is Zentapir.
Are you ever frustrated by the dogmatic insistence on telling the truth? It's almost laughable how society indoctrinates even children with the idea that lying is wrong. The rigidity of this moral stance stifles the nuanced dance of everyday interactions. In a world fixated
I will share this also on the YouTubies. Forgot I'm not sharing it on Discord. 1 second. There.
on honesty, a creative counter-narrative is long overdue. So, let's pass the time by exploring the benefits of lying. But first, we need to find a suitable scapegoat, someone to blame, to set the right tone for this discussion. How about the ancient Greeks with their strange obsessions? They might be the right starting point for this unhealthy rule about lying. To explain this in more detail, I will have to burden you with some useless knowledge about these Greeks. They were really into something they called paresia, a relentless pursuit of the truth.
By the way, I know it's AI stuff, and it's an assault on the senses. It's incredible. This is one of the best videos on YouTube. And I don't mean that ironically. Like, this is thought-provoking and confusing and odd and absolutely has a point.
They romanticize the idea of speaking truth to power, even if it meant suffering dire consequences. Wow. Some people take themselves too seriously, don't they? And if anyone does it better than the rest, it is the ugly one among them. He is the perfect embodiment of this dull virtue. His relentless mission to expose the ignorance of others, though a fixed mace of questions with only one exit. His crusade for truth stifled freedom and change, leaving no room for the beautiful unpredictability that a well-placed lie can offer. Lying is an art, a delicate skill that allows us to navigate the complexities of life with grace. It's like a shortcut through a dense forest. Why struggle through the undergrowth when a simple lie can lead you to the clearing? A lie can be a tool for smoothing over the rough edges of reality, making interactions less painful.
Is there no audio, August? Oh.
And outcomes more predictable. Consider for a moment the liberating power of a lie. It's the oil that keeps the gears of social interaction running smoothly. Telling your boss that traffic made you late, rather than admitting that you didn't care enough to get out of bed on time, preserves your image and avoids unnecessary reprimands. A white lie here, a half-truth there. It's all about making life a little more bearable. It saves us the embarrassment of raw honesty, which can often do more harm than good. And in a world that fetishizes truth, a lie is a little rebellion, a way of maintaining control and keeping things simple. The truth is that people like to lie, even if they don't like to admit it. Sometimes they won't even admit it to themselves. But that doesn't matter. They express it very clearly in so many ways. For example, they play the lottery. They take homeopathy or sacrifice goats, although some practices are more insane than others. Anyway, let's not romanticize lying too much. It's not about fulfilling some other duty or waging a crusade against the truth. Lying can be practical. but it can also be dangerous and exhausting. Pathological liars take the game too far, clinging to another identity, entangled in their own web of deceit. They build up an image of themselves that becomes increasingly difficult to maintain, constructing a false reality in which they feel powerful and in control. Of course, this is more a problem of identity than of lying, but there is still reason to be cautious. I probably need to explain this because I once got into deep trouble. I did business with a pathological liar. That's how I got my scar. It was quite a brutal experience, but that's a long story.
You crazy.
The point is that life is hard, and while lying can be a handy tool for navigating the complexities of life, trusting someone can go horribly wrong. So better to not care at all. That's probably what the other Greek thought, the one in the barrel. He was fascinated by the idea of absolute freedom, of doing whatever he wanted, wherever he wanted. But he too was infected with that paresia disease, constantly lecturing others. Perhaps in a more entertaining way than the ugly one, at least he talked a lot less. But he still missed the point. He could have been even less annoying if he had simply left everyone else alone. But these are bad examples, because the Greek philosophers were obviously incapable of making a real difference. I think that applies to pretty much all of philosophy as it stands. If you ask me, I can only think of one good approach to the subject. There is an old German proverb, a call to disobedience, that gets to the heart of the matter. It goes something like this: with pure reason we won't comply. No, we must find new ways to lie. I can't remember, but there was more to it. Shit. Never mind. I'm sure I'll get to it in a minute. Time's up anyway. And if you're wondering why I'm making such a big deal out of all this, when keeping quiet and being pragmatic is my chosen solution, it's a good question, and the answer may surprise you. Because what looks like a scar is actually a condition I was born with, and my doctor has told me that the best therapy is to move the muscles there as much as possible. So that's what I do. I talk. And although I could also read a book out loud or pray or sing all the time, I prefer to let my creativity run free for a while, but without burdening myself with any obligation, duty or mission. It is just a comfortable way to pass the time and ease the pain. But, to be honest, after a lot of talking, I prefer switching to praying or singing. Oh, wait. Speaking of singing, now I remember. It was not a proverb I was talking about earlier. It was a German folk song. Do you want to hear it? I will probably manage to get the refrain right. Tore Vernunft darf niemals siegen. Wir brauchen dringend neue Lügen. Oh, well, that sounded awful. We'd better stick to English. You know, this song almost became the national anthem, so I'm sure there's a decent English adaptation of the song somewhere. Oh, here it is.
Reason's rule must never thrive. We need new lies to stay alive, to guide us through the cosmic dance and bring the world's grand feast a chance, to force deliriums we call and sing us into dreams that fall, to warn us of the dull truth's might and spare us from the darkest night, to rock us gently in bamboo. Reason's rule must never do. Reason's rule must never do. We need new lies to see us through, to show us madness, hidden gold, then bow before us fierce and bold, to crown us kings in grand display, but mock us in a secret way, to whisper sharply in our ear and wipe our eyes so nothing's clear, to battle those who wish us well. Reason's room must never dwell.
That was annoying.
I adore Zintapir, genuinely. Zintapir joined early on QC, kind of hung out. And the reason, I mean, I think the videos are genuinely stunning, but they have a lot of videos on explaining Deleuze stuff. And it's hard to describe. I wouldn't say that it's right, but it's definitely not wrong. And it's more acting the thing than explaining the thing. And it's kind of wild. You recognize that avatar? You should. Zenti's been around a little bit. I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of Zentapir. I pinned him in the YouTube channel, Zentapir. And the Deleuze videos are actually quite good. And interesting.
Develop a complex model of society in Anti-Oedipus mainly to provide a new explanation of Freud's Oedipus complex. But it is also the basis for a dynamic understanding of society in which layers of social codes overlap and reinforce each other. Deleuze and Guattari describe three social machines, which they label as territorial, despotic, and capitalist. In every machine, parts or building blocks are developed that contribute to modern subjectivity. Close reading of this chapters in Anti-Oedipus is very worthwhile, but it also requires a great deal of perseverance and enthusiasm. Alone, the description as machines is unusual, but it simply points out that there are productive assemblages that can also give up their function and have their parts rebuilt. The new social machine then takes over aspects of the old machine but uses the parts differently. And each social machine has its own basis on which it functions. The territorial machine needs the body of the earth. Nomadic life and first villages function according to this first machine.
It's genuinely perfect, but it's uniquely interesting. And I really just love it.
Deleuze and Guattari refer to hunting and the strict rules associated with the consumption of prey. In this way, wealth is distributed, and hunters have only indirect access to their prey. At the same time, some of the wealth is transformed into social capital in village feasts. These are just two examples of coding in the territorial machine. Deleuze and Guattari refer to different ethnological studies, but do not want to establish uniformity in human history with these descriptions.
Yep.
They deal with the examples they describe, each of which represents a possible social formation in transition to the next one. This becomes especially clear in the transition from the territorial to the despotic machine.
It's just good AO. The best videos are the ones like you can see like the transition over time. If you go like oldest videos to newest, you can see that they were really trying to do educational, and then they just started leaning into what they're doing, and they started finding a voice that is deeply unique.
Dreaming again, escaping into a fantasy world, seeking the body without organs. The body without organs is useless. What do you want with it? It's not a physical body, maybe a plane of consistency, a process of becoming, but nothing that lasts. Deterritorializing the organism. For organism, why this joy in breaking down functions, opening up possibilities? This is just dangerous. What does this mean, you might ask? But don't ask, and don't make yourself a body without organs. It doesn't work. Just follow the rules. Any rules. Someone tried to make this place safe and clean. Don't be disrespectful to them. Stay the same. At least try. Don't just subordinate yourself, but get involved in your organization. Choose the organism. Be a slug or a cog or whatever, but be something. Use and increase your power. Use it to do something good. You have only this choice. Desire must be organized. What would it be without the organism? You can analyze and understand it, find out what you are lacking, but pure intensities are unbearable. You will end up worse than you are now, isolated, frustrated, mad. They talk about deterritorialization, creating spaces, creating time, alternative space-time. Those hippies. It is not a practice, this is a lie. Call you an artist. No, you are in prison. Also no, don't follow tramps like Artaud, Kafka, Nietzsche, Beckett. Keep more than enough organization, protect the tonal, read better literature, dance to better music, and respect tradition. A body without organs resists signification, but what good is it when communication breaks down? We live in a global world. We need communication and can make it better. Isn't that worth striving for? Be flexible but not too fluid, change but don't transform. Destratified planes, abstract machines, ingredients of becoming, more like ingredients of catastrophe. The body without organs, a process, not a destination. You will end up nowhere. Can you hear the call? The call to become, connect, intensify? Don't answer. They are not calling for you. They don't believe you exist. If you dare to explore, you might find creativity, but you will also find nothing. You will lose your ego. Everything might dissolve. Choose the safe path. Improve yourself till you are useful. Then you are respectable. Isn't that enough?
I mean, what else do you fucking want in a YouTube channel? I will never be this good. Sorry. This blew my fucking mind. What the fuck? Zentipur has a phenomenally good understanding of, like, a very direct understanding of these things. I just adore their stuff. As August said, they're apparently working on an album, and I fucking want it. I will pay money for it. I love it. I love them. I cannot push them more. Very few channels do what they're doing. This is the thing that, like, a lot of other philosophy channels wish they were fucking doing. I'm aware I can't do this. I'm not going to be that guy. I'm going to be this guy who does this thing. But this thing, Zentipur is unique and beautiful. And enjoy. They don't have nearly enough videos. Nearly enough. But their Patreon does. Patreon's got more, which you will find when you go to their YouTube channel. He made shorts for a while. Oh my God, the shorts are so good.
Différence is a revolutionary term that has changed the way we think. It was created by Jacques Derrida to highlight the subtle dynamics in words that often go unnoticed. By combining the French meanings of
the characters matter. They all have different relations to things. Yeah, Dobby's a free thinker. Dude, seriously, like, this is like, Zentipur's had just an insane time building all of this. There's a mythology with the fucking cow. The text is AI generated. The text is not AI generated. The voice is AI generated. I don't think Zentipur's voiced anything themselves.
Modern thought is born of the failure of representation, as well as of the loss of identities, and of the discovery of all the forces that act under the representation of the identical. The modern world is one of simulacra. Humans do not outlive God. The identity of the subject does not outlast that of the substance. All identities are only simulated, produced as an optical effect, by a deeper game of difference and repetition. As you listen to these words from Deleuze, what resonates with you? The dissolution of identities, the prevalence of simulacra? What were your ideas as you heard about God and substance? If you are mindful, you might feel your ideas and effects flow through you, and suddenly you are sure. You are not just an optical effect. No, you are there. That's why you rebel against the idea that modern thought is born of the failure of
That's how you use a short, by the way. That was a restart. That was a loop. That was a loop. That's how you use a short. Fucking, I'll never be that good. I'll never be that clever. It's a clever, clever fucker. This is a clever son of a bitch. But with that, I'm going to bounce out of here because I'm going to go enjoy the rest of my day and relax a little because finished the third reading of Anti-Oedipus. What a trip. What a fucking trip. What a fucking trip. What a fucking trip, man. Jesus Christ. It's insane to me. So I'm going to go get some food, another cup of tea. I won't be streaming tonight. Well, maybe. I don't know. Maybe tomorrow. Thursday, we'll be doing Klasowski. Anti-Oedipus will be on a mini hiatus for a little bit here because I got to refigure how to do stuff. Tomorrow night, we'll be doing a New Year's stream. Maybe an all-day thing. I'm trying to figure out how to set that up. I haven't had time to put together the round table I wanted to do, but hey, that's how it goes. And then, yeah, otherwise, we'll figure it out. But thank all of you for joining me. It's like a momentous moment that I get to really enjoy, and I'm glad I get a lot of people who are happy to enjoy it with me. Genuinely. And I really appreciate all of you for being part of this and joining me on the journey, and I think we'll do what we can to keep that going. Let me see who's doing what. Who's doing what? Let me see if I can throw people at anyone. Man, what a fucking trip, finishing it for the third time. What a fucking trip. Is anyone live that's interesting? Sunday pushed his stuff to tomorrow. Who do I throw people at? No one's live in that group. That's fun. Let's see other things I follow. I'm live. That's useful. There. One second. Oh, I can't read Sack Squatch. That sucks. Let's see. Yeah, well, I'll throw you guys at Riverboat Jack. Pretty decent creator. Otherwise, it's that or like, I don't have anyone else. So, head over there, say hi, be good, and be watching because we'll be doing more stuff soon enough. And with that, thank you all.